You're saying we're
Well, it
live.
says going live. Well,
Oh
no,
no.
now it just says we're live. I don't know how to do this stuff. We're doing it live here from oh no. And I didn't
Beautiful and
mute myself over here and I can hear myself.
beautiful.
Okay.
Oh, you
Okay.
did it.
Okay, so last week it was Will. This week it's you.
No, but
Beautiful.
the stream didn't hear it this time.
Yeah, that's true.
At least
There.
I was just confusing myself. I could have played it off really good, but I didn't. Uh, yeah, let me make sure I can see it. Okay, yeah, we're good. Hello, everybody. What is this? You're right. What is this? This is like a back old school style, the full nerd. We're here in the pre-show. This is the fun
Yeah.
part. Arguably the fun part of the show. Some people just show up just for the pre-show and then leave when we actually talk about serious stuff because they just
Actually,
want to see what we're
Lewis
going to talk
Law
about next.
actually is going to be
Yeah.
doing that.
Just the pre-announcing it now. I don't know how I feel
yeah.
about that.
This way you can meet me without anybody saying, and here's so and so from this publication.
That's
Hi,
true.
I'm here. You can just meet me casually.
Just cash, yeah. No, it was fun. We didn't go into the studio this week because I'm starting to feel a little sick, and I had some other personal stuff going on. So we're like, hey, let's have some fun. Let's do it old school style. But I'm not even running the stream this time. Now, yeah, Will is in charge of the verticals and horizontals, and that's scary. I think everyone on the stream should be scared that something's going to happen because
Look,
I have no idea.
I can do whatever I want. Like I can. Well, hold on. Can I?
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to see it, so.
No, you're not going to see it. But I can. I can move the power button anywhere. I can be on top of Adam if we want. I can do whatever I want. All bets are off. There's no law anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for like the like sports commenter kind of analysis where you're just like drawing over the entire
Oh,
name of the
yeah.
stream.
Joke, but I set that up for
Not
Computex,
joking.
and then we ended up not using it. But like I have it set up so I can do telestrating with an iPad Pro, and it'll show me the stream on the Pro, and I can draw over it. So I think I can do a better job than Tom Brady. I don't know. I'm feeling good about it.
Well, that's not hard. Tom Brady would. Yeah, he was
That
kind
guy
of boring.
stinks.
Yeah. Sean, do you know who Tom Brady is?
Sounds like a name. A
Yeah, don't
household
worry
name
about
of
him.
some sort.
He's not a big deal.
People in households say his name.
The football people care about him.
Yeah.
Sports Bob.
Yeah. We got Sean Hollister from The Verge. Wow. I mean,
Welcome.
now we've made it. We got The Verge on the podcast, so like we're cool now, right? Is that are you here to give us
tiny
the
bit.
cool stick?
Well, I mean, I've got so many handhelds sitting around me. And it's just giant 5090 sitting in an eGPU. I know you've had one of those around too, so it won't be anything super novel to the viewers. But I'll just lift it up, and we can all like marvel.
The question is NVIDIA Broadcast going to clip it out? Oh, that's
No, yeah, it's still good. Yeah.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. It's in
Wait,
the
so you're
little
not
thing.
daily
It's like
driving
you're
it?
actually getting a workout just lifting it at that distance
A little
Yeah.
bit.
from your body.
A little bit.
I like it.
Maybe
Yeah.
this should just be my head on the podcast for the rest
There
of
you
this.
go.
Yeah.
I think you just animate like a mouth underneath, like a puppet mouth, like a sock puppet.
Oh, like it's a new,
New
form of
NVIDIA
VTuber.
broadcast.
Yeah, because I mean the fans are like eyes, like big owl eyes already. So there you go.
Then Will can come in with his drawing software and just add like a little mouth.
I don't think I have my iPad in here.
Yeah.
I'd have to run and grab it. But
So
anyway,
years ago, I actually did set up a telestrator system that was the same software hardware based thing that they used in the NFL for tech videos that I was doing for a previous company. And yeah, it's like it was at the time it was like a touch panel, an external touch panel, and it was super expensive, super large. And when you had to write on it, it would like essentially freeze frame whatever was being shown, and then you erase it, and then it would go back to the live feed. It was so clunky. Oh, it was so annoying. I hated
there's an
that thing.
OBS plugin now that you get just a video feed out. Like it gives you like a program video feed of the scene you want to telestrate over, and a drawing surface, and it all runs inside a web browser on your iPad, and pipes the drawing back. And I was absolutely blown away with it when I tested it out. I've never really used it, other than
The future.
just for comedy.
The future is here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Telestrating coming to PC World. I think the hamsters are doing okay. We look pretty good.
Yeah.
On my
Yeah. People in the chat, tell us the audio levels. You know, if we're all over the place, tell Will actually specifically
Yeah.
scream at Will. tell him to turn up or down or whoever, because we're all over the place. We got friend of the show, Mark Chambers, Davina Duckworth, Deus, Lucifer is back. Hello. And no super chat enabled. I still have to go through the process to get those enabled.
How many
But
months has it been?
I know. But if you're feeling like you want to throw some money at us, actually, I would suggest going over to the GoFundMe for Gordon's family and contributing the super chat money over there if you feel so inclined. So it actually worked out great that that it's not working. And Tim Lau, Raphael, all the cool kids.
Oh, my friend Niall's watching. Super cool.
Everyone's saying the audio is good, so I guess we're good. Oh yes, thank you for dropping that. Look at this. It's like Will is like producing the show or something.
I know what occasionally I know what I'm doing, Adam. That's the thing to remember.
That's good. We're all professionals here.
Yeah.
I can't actually. Sean, would you consider yourself a capital P professional?
I try to steer away from that when possible.
Okay.
Also, the capital J journalists. It's dicey these days.
So you're not a PS5 Pro owner. You're just
Dang it,
the
that was the
amateur
joke.
version.
Oh my.
Mine has a disk drive. That's the important thing.
Exactly.
No, don't worry. They'll sell you the additional disk drive on top of the price of the Pro.
They won't sell you. You couldn't buy those. They were unavailable for ages.
Yeah. No, you can get them on Amazon right now for like $180. What are you talking about?
It's what a bargain.
A special ordered one just for the review. Walmart was the only place that had them in town, and Walmart got it to me next day for like retail price. As soon as I put it back on, what was it, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, something like that, like 5 people in my inbox immediately. Yes, I want that. Give it to me.
Got it. Wow.
PS5 on PlayStation Direct, $80, currently unavailable. So, sorry, disc owners.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to keep using our PCs to game on.
That's true.
Dang it!
What a shame.
That's a bummer. What a shame. All right, cool. We even have Willis Sly. Willis, you're gonna have to fight Will now for the producer chair.
No, Willis does a much better job than I do. I'm all in on Willis.
Yeah, there you go. I like it.
Substitute Will.
But now he just gets to watch. So I don't know if that's fun or not for him. But
He says he has time to snack.
That's saying it like he doesn't have time to snack.
Yeah, I was
when
he's
producing the show too.
He's the keeper.
You don't get to see him when you're remote.
Is it just nothing but guai guai chips surrounding him?
Yeah,
pretty much. Durian candies, the whole thing.
White rabbit candies. Yeah, I do have some gold chocolate coins next to me.
New Year.
Just for fun. I also have all my fidget stuff, like my keycap.
As long as they don't make noise, that's fine.
Wait, like this?
No, we don't want to. The Zoom clip that out. You're good.
Oh, did it? Oh.
Wow,
should we kick it
Do
off?
or don't want things that make funny noises.
No
Yeah,
funny.
okay.
Well, I mean, if you're holding it up, you're sharing with the crowd, then you can do funny noises. But don't. One time we had a guest on a podcast that I do that had their microphone on just a pole on their desk, and they just idly would tap their desk the entire thing, and then I had to cut out 3,000 tiny tap. Anyway, don't do that, please.
I want to know what this thing Sean has before
Yeah,
we
I'm
get
curious.
started, because that looks like
Is that a tiny Game
little
Boy
emulator.
Color? Game Boy Advance?
Thunby color. I don't think it's going to show the screen.
Does it
Unfortunately,
actually
the
play
screen's too
games?
bright. Oh yeah, all kinds. But
Is this Linux
tiny
based?
tiny little games. It's I think it's a Raspberry Pi based thing. Like an RP.
Oh wow!
Can you see anything on that screen? I don't know.
No,
It's all
just pure
blown
white.
out.
Yeah.
But it looks like a Pi. Is it like a Pi Zero or something? It's got to be tiny.
I think so. Let me double check. I'll just look it up while we're on the call. So.
That's cool. You got all the cool stuff, Sean. Yeah.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best. You can program your own stuff with a MicroPython game engine. It is on RP2350, around 300 megahertz. Has 520 KB of memory.
Ooh.
Oh,
You don't
wow.
need more than that. No one
You
ever
get-
needs more than
13 megabytes worth of storage.
that. Ooh.
So it's like for Atari games, basically, like 2600 and up to maybe NES.
I mean, but yeah, there's like modern modern fancy like phone games that just don't require
Like
any kind
Snake?
of resources on here.
Oh, yeah.
2048 is on here.
yeah.
That's probably the thing
Bellagio
people
could
most people
probably run on there.
recognize. Bust a Move,
Actually, Elena, you had shared a link on Slack about God, what was running inside of a Word doc, or like Linux
Today?
running inside of a PDF. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
today it was
Yeah.
Linux
Yeah,
running
yeah.
inside a PDF. I think it's the same person who did Doom inside a PDF, but don't quote me on that. I haven't had a chance to read the full
so
article yet.
weird. Oh, that's so weird.
No, I think it's so fun. Where like somebody's like, here are some arbitrary constraints I'm going to place upon myself. Can I make this happen? And then they do.
People
Yeah.
crazy. It's like I mean,
just-
yeah, everything runs Doom at this point, right?
Yeah.
Pregnancy
I-
tests, the whole deal.
I just I'm not smart enough. All right.
Adam, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So
So
cool.
how does this work? You say the intro, and then I switch over to the pre-roll, and then I hard cut back or fade back in, and give
Yeah,
you
hard
a
cut
hand
into the-
gesture.
Yeah,
when
yeah,
it's
you're gonna
go,
give
'cause
me
you
a
can't
hand
hear it?
gesture. The stream's not gonna see your hand gesture.
Yeah.
Because yeah,
Theoretically.
so you can give me whatever hand gesture you want to come
Wow,
back in
okay.
after the music.
Wow. Okay. Adam's
'Cause-
inviting the HR discussion.
No,
here.
he tried to get me to make all sorts of rude gestures when we were practicing.
So
a
he
little
just
while ago.
said count down from 3.
Yeah,
Put
and I was
end
like,
in the middle.
I'll do a German 3, so it's safe. You're good.
No, that's still not so. You just, yeah.
Okay.
No.
we do a
In
less
fact,
than
it's
three
actually
symbol.
probably chronologically easier from the European 3.
Yeah, probably.
Almost
all right.
certainly.
Actually, well, crap. I didn't even hold on. What are we talking about today? I didn't even update it. Okay.
You wrote the thirds.
I know, but I didn't write it in the notes.
Oh, well, I can't help then.
Okay. Okay, cool. Now I'm ready. Are we ready?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Question
Here we
mark.
go. In this episode of The Full Nerd, more GPU madness and handheld goodies. And welcome everybody to The Full Nerd. I am your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray. This is The Full Nerd. Sorry, Will just gave me a really horrible hand gesture.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, no, everybody saw it except for nobody saw it. And
Did
yeah, this is
nothing wrong.
The Full Nerd, the best weekly podcast about all the PC hardware news and PC building news that you need straight into your eye and ear holes. I'm your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray. On the line, we're doing an all remote version. We're all at home. We're just chilling, having some fun. On the line with me is one Elena Yee. Hello, Elena.
Hello. It's Hearts and Candy Week.
Yeah, I
It's-
have candy in front of me.
Oh God, it is this week. Oh no.
It's okay. So it's Friday, which is great because you can ignore all the madness on Friday, and then on Saturday is when you pick up all the candy at a discount. That's all I'm saying.
Ooh. What's your favorite Valentine's candy? Is it the chalky hearts?
No.
That's a great question, Will Smith, who's running the verticals and horizontals.
Hi, I'm running the verticals and horizontals. Hello.
And so your question was?
What's your favorite Valentine's candy? I have a chocolate orange here. That's the best I can do.
That's pretty good. I want to know Sean Hollister's from The Verge, his favorite candy. Hello, Sean.
Ooh, hello. I'll take a Terry's chocolate orange. That'd be good. Dark chocolate, maybe.
I think this
Only
would
for
milk.
Valentine's, or is that like
Just send it to
your-
the screen. I mean, oh, look at that. That's the
Wow.
one. That's the one. I love it.
that- yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. Fancy dark chocolate will do it for me. Bits of fruit. See's candies are wonderful. Get a box of those See's candies.
I
Take
really
the
like
soft centers.
I really like the what are the toffeeettes? The ones that they make with the it's like a hard piece of toffee and then a nice thing chocolate and then there's like nuts
yeah.
crumbled into the chocolate on the outside. Those are real good.
But what is it called? I don't know. I
Those
always
are
think
the-
like almond roca, but See's version. But it's not that. It's
I think they
better.
I think it's toffeeettes. I think they call them
Oh,
toffeeettes.
okay. That might be
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're good.
Well, now I'm hungry, but it's not quite lunchtime yet. We got to get through a whole show. Before we do, though, we're still in the pre-show here. Last week, I mentioned that there was some podcast beef that I need to clear the air that there was a podcast out there that also talks about technology. I don't know if anybody listens to it or not, but it's called
Yes.
Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I finally went back and listened because I was like, wait, what was that beef? And I looked like an idiot for not remembering. But
Yeah.
now I remembered.
Oh no, here we go.
You made a comment on the podcast because you were talking about thumb drives,
Mhm.
and you were like, listen. Nobody should ever use, for the love of God, nobody should use thumb drives that they find at conventions.
No.
And I personally have a very large collection of thumb drives that I use at conventions. And so I felt called out. And you know that about me. You use my
look,
thumb drives.
You
So you called yourself out.
you have
you
a
know?
sack of thumb drives. I did not know their provenance when you loaned them to me, but
Oh,
now
come on. Where'd you think I got those?
well, it says verbatim on it. I didn't think you were picking them up off the floor at CES. I thought you got them at the store like a decent human being.
Imagining a white paper now, the provenance of thumb drives.
Oh, I mean, look, if you want to talk about a fun, ask your security expert friends, like what a good way to get some basic infection started. And the thing you do is you go put a decent looking thumb drive out and just drop it on the street, and some knucklehead will pick it up and plug it into their computer.
Depends on the size. Because some sizes I won't even F with anymore.
Like a
if
2
it's like
gig?
8 gigs, yeah, if it's like 8 gigs, even if it's 16 gigs, I'm probably walking by it. Maybe 32 gigs. It depends on how busy I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, must be nice.
Also,
once
listen,
you've got the dual-sided 128s, you never go back.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And listen, I've got a security friend. He's been on the show before, Mike.
You should bring him back. He's great.
I should
Yeah,
bring
he
him
is
back.
good.
And also, listen, I want him to have job security. If I didn't pick up these thumb drives and insert them to my systems,
An act
then
of
he'd be
friendship.
out of a job. So like, come on, like don't take that
Wow.
away from them.
Oh.
That's so rude.
I'm cracking up in the background because I just want to say that this conversation is making me want to say, like, if you're going to have a talk about safe practices, you should have it before any behavior happens. It's all I'm going to say. So,
Yeah.
Will, if you want to know the origins of your USB drives, you should
Look,
probably ask
I
before you
should've-
plug it in somewhere.
I should have absolutely communicated better. Look, I a long time ago, back in the days when you could still do this, I took a USB cable specifically so I could plug in and charge my phone at conventions, and like those weird plugs in airports that are just like a USB plug
Oh, no.
that's hooked up. And I cut the data lines on the USB cable. It doesn't work anymore because without the data lines, it doesn't know how to negotiate the USB PD stuff anymore. But yeah, I used to call that my USB condom because that's what it was. Basically, it was like a safe USB cable, so I could be promiscuous with my plugging in. We need to get that for Adam. He needs to have a USB, like some layer of safety there. Maybe we should just glue stuff into his USB ports so he can't make bad decisions anymore. That's what the NSA does.
Ooh. As long as we're not talking about measurements here, I think we're good.
How big are your thumb drives, Adam? That's my question.
You've used them, Will.
They told me it was a clean podcast. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I don't know where this is going. Valentine's Day is around the corner. Something's in the air. Okay, well, listen. There's beef now between the two podcasts. We're never going to clear this air. It's going to be an epic rap battle. Like, I think somebody should go on the Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod episode and just like apologize to the full nerd. If not, we're going to take you down.
Of all of the things I've said over the years about you, that's the one that you choose to take offense at. I'm shocked, sir. Shocked.
Right, listen. You know how I feel about my free thumb drives and my free candy at conventions.
Look,
like, don't take that away, man.
Does Sean know, though?
I don't think Sean knows.
I don't know the story.
I think we should inform him so he can be slightly horrified like the rest of us.
Are we still talking about USB ports or is it candy?
Well,
Floor candy is what we're talking about now,
yeah.
Sean.
So you know that area, that Shenzhen Plaza area in CES, like North Hall, in between.
Didn't make it there this year. But
Yeah, right. Anyway, so we went there a couple years ago at CES to try to find, some fun stuff, but it was at the end of the show, so a lot of people were already packing up. We were shooting behind the scenes video, and we went to a booth that had already been cleared out, so there's just a bunch of junk on the floor and like pamphlets and stuff like that. And I was like, "Ooh, candy!" And Willis, our video producer, was just like, "Dude, don't eat candy off the floor." And I was like, "No, it's still wrapped. It's fine. It's fine."
Oh,
and I ate
wait,
it
it was wrapped?
on camera. Yeah, it was wrapped. Come on, it's
Oh,
not like
okay.
a
Yeah, I'm not gonna eat
unwrapped
that.
Jolly
Okay.
Rancher. Yeah, it was fine. Look, I'm still okay, right?
Coincidentally, he got some sort of super flu that year. Was out of work for 3 weeks afterwards. But other than that, it was totally fine.
The provenance of CES floor candy.
Yes. Somebody's a writer around here. Somebody needs to do that. Write those up because it's not me. Yeah.
My favorite thing about CS is going around and just judging people's booths by the quality of their carpet. If they have the thick padding under the carpet, that to me, like I know
Wow.
you want me to come to your booth at CES and spend some real time there. A 4-inch pad underneath that carpet, I will be there all day. I'll come stop by to see how things are going midway through the day if I'm in the neighborhood.
You just kick off your shoes and you're just like flexing your
Oh, yeah,
toes on
just-
the nice pad, and you're just like, "Oh God, this is great."
You might think this is a spoiled journalist thing, but when you've been walking for 5 days straight across half of Vegas, it's really nice to have that moment where you're like, "Ooh, I'm walking on a cloud now."
Yeah.
When one of my favorite stupid thing we ever did at Tested was we did a carpet padding review on it was like one of those late days. It was like Thursday afternoon. The whole thing was shutting down. Everybody was done, and we were like, "What can we do that would be fun?" And we were like, "This carpet is really freaking good." And I got so many other journalists that were like, "Man, thank you for calling out the people who do good carpet," because it was always some little tiny booth that would have dope carpet, and then Intel would have the thinnest stuff with bare concrete and maybe some tacks underneath it just to kind of add a little extra layer of suffering. Yeah.
Dang, calling out
You know what
Intel.
though? Well, they
That's
have to
clever.
be able to afford having the Intel startup sound just play randomly in different places. And the AV equipment for that must be expensive. So they got to cut the corners somewhere.
Well, and that was back when
Dun, dun,
Intel
dun.
would have a 4-foot wafer there, and they'd have 18 spotlights on it. So anytime you were in that general vicinity, it would just blind you with the reflections. So, anyway.
Nice. Well, before we get into the show, one more thing that I need to bring up is that I want to give people an update. We are nearing some final details around Gordon's celebration of life. I do want to mention that this is a closed event, unfortunately not open to the public. But if you are watching or listening to this and you are in the industry and would like to attend and haven't already been talked to, I've been reaching out to some people, not everybody yet. Email me. If you don't have my email, you probably have somebody on staff's email. You probably have a way to get a hold of me if you're in the industry. If not,
Adam's
maybe I'll
cell
give
phone
my email
number
next time.
is
Yeah, here we go. Boom, boom, boom.
555.
Because we're finalizing the date, figuring stuff out. Definitely want to make sure people can attend, and then hopefully while people are in town, I might be able to get some some stuff for the show that we can do live, but we'll see. It's still in the planning. I just wanted to update everyone. Also, a fun little post. I think Elena, it was you who originally shared it. Gordon's nephew got on Reddit and made a sweet little post on. Was it PC Master Race or was it on the Battlefield?
They cross posted, so it was on the PCMR subreddit and also the Battlefield subreddit.
Okay, yeah, just talking about how they miss the times hanging out with Gordon and playing Battlefield, and they built PCs together and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
Trying to, I think, get the Battlefield devs to maybe put an Easter egg in to one of the games in tribute if possible.
yeah,
That would be rad.
yeah, I should put that in the chat. I don't know if I'll try to find it real quick and put it in the
I can
chat.
drop
But
it in. I got the
yeah,
link.
oh, thank you. Leave a comment, upvote. I don't know how Reddit works, so it needs more attention. It was a nice little thing. He created a little video clip and stuff like that. So anyway, I thought that was sweet. But more info on that. Oh, look at that. Thank you,
Thanks,
Willis. Look at that. Yeah, somebody's doing some actual work around here. Speaking of doing some actual work, we should talk about some GPU news because guess what? Wow, this is like GPU season and it does not end. I was like, hey, what kind of news is out there? What topics do we have? And I was just like, oh my God, it's still just a lot of GPU stuff. So if you're not interested in GPU stuff, you're probably in the wrong episode.
Welcome to the winter of our discontent.
Yeah, right. It continues.
Looking so classy.
There- there's a lot to talk about here, so I'm just going to start off with some basic stuff like pricing. So there was a lot of weirdness going on, not just about the new 50 series being sold out everywhere, then all of a sudden companies started raising prices as well. There was conflicting reports around whether there were tariffs or whether it was because of the limiting quantities. Will, did you follow this much?
So, well, okay. So there's a lot of FUD, and there's a lot of people that are profoundly upset that they can't get a GPU when they want it. And it seems like a lot of shenaniganry on the part of the vendors all at the same time. Like, I saw a friend of mine reached out to me yesterday and was like, hey, have you seen this bundle that MSI is doing? Sorry, shout outs to MSI, I guess. This might not be a shout out situation. I don't know. But it was, it was
What up, MSI?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a 5090 bundle with a power supply. When you priced it out, the power supply ended up being $700 above the MSR. They took the MSRP of the GPU, and then they took the price of the bundle and they separated out. And it's like it is a 5090 capable PSU, but that should be like 200, maybe 250, 300 at the absolute max. And that felt a little bit.
Unless it was diamond encrusted.
It was not diamond encrusted, as far as I know. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was on Newegg. It wasn't on MSI store, but it was an MSI power supply and MSI grid video card. So
That was the same thing these retailers did, like Newegg, like when the 3080s were new, right? Nobody could get enough stock of those. Like, this doesn't have anything to do with tariffs, right? It's just, hey, things in demand, we can make more money if we bundle.
yeah, tariffs aren't on. I mean, they might be on now because I know that there were some tariff announcements today. But at the time that the card launched, there weren't tariffs. There was just a threat of impending tariffs. So
Yeah, I don't know. Me personally, like it is, you're right. It is hard to track. Like I feel like there's a lot of sources out there, a lot of stories, and just like, I don't know what's what. Either way, I mean, prices are high, availability is non-existent. Sean, I'm sorry, I didn't fully introduce you. You work over at The Verge.
Oh, yeah.
I said you're from The Verge, but what do you do over at The Verge? I guess for people
Oh,
who don't know.
gosh. Well, I'm a senior editor at The Verge. I was one of, some people will call me a co-founder at The Verge. It means I was like one of over a dozen people who co-founded The Verge, so I can't take much credit for that. But what I do is I'm at the intersection of like games, toys, technology, and consumer advocacy. And so I like dabble into when companies are misbehaving, but most of the time I play with really fun things. PC gaming, handhelds, GPUs here and there, interact with a couple of my colleagues who also love playing with these things, and
Nice.
get up cool stories and videos.
Yeah, well, it's what's the temperature over at The Verge right now for all this stuff with the 5090s? Nobody able to get them. Are you getting a lot of comments of being like, "Oh, well, nobody can get a 5090 because they send them all to The Verge and all the reviewers."
We did get two, so I guess, that's one more than we probably deserved, right? But the temperature is rather hot with the melting connectors, which I imagine you're going to talk about soon with
yeah.
the rest of us on here. I would say that, like, we're not as interested in writing a ton about them because, yes, people will be like, we can't buy them anyhow, they're so expensive. The really interesting thing for me about the 5090 is that NVIDIA showed they could shrink the card into a smaller size that's useful in more places. But you can't buy that one. You can't buy the bigger ones. And none of the other board partners are building anything small. It's only NVIDIA that's managed to do this all by itself. Doesn't seem to be sharing that with others. And so it's kind of irrelevant, I guess, right now, except for those of us who managed to get one by chance and stuff it into cool things like you and I did, and we'll talk about soon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, let's get to the connector because I watched a video this morning from one DeBauer over on his channel. He showed he was talking about a story of somebody who's based in Berlin, I believe, that sent him a GPU and power supply and the connector. And what had happened was that there was obvious damage at not only at the connector ends for both to the PSU and to the GPU, but the actual cable, one cable was melted. throughout the length of the cable, and like he kind of demonstrated a similar thing that he had on his system that he set up. He had one of those infrared guns, and he was pointing at it, and there was like two of the threaded cables that were like very hot. Like each one of them holds a certain amount of voltage, and those, and I don't remember the exact numbers. Go watch the videos. It's a good video, but so this also seems to be something different from like the original 12-volt high power stuff, where individual cables are getting really warm, and yeah, I don't know what's going on over here.
I mean,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead, Sean.
I was gonna say the first time it was the adapters that people were like pointing at first, like maybe it's just the plugs, and the plugs, aren't going in all the way. Maybe NVIDIA didn't design the original set of like 12 volt. I can't remember what the full name of that original cable was that they started releasing with like 30 series. Maybe people aren't plugging this in all the way, and NVIDIA should have designed it better so that people can plug it all the way. And now they've redesigned it. But what we're looking at with the 5090 is like this cable here. I don't know if you can see that. It's designed to take 600 watts is like the maximum.
12 volt 2x6, yeah.
That's right on it. Yeah, 12 volts. Yeah, it's 12 volt, 600 watts maximum. And the card is rated at nearly 600 watts. So they're trying to like push the maximum that can go through a cable that was redesigned because they were already having issues with how much they were pushing through it. And so I have no idea how much testing they might have done beforehand to make sure that, they weren't running into this kind of issue again, but clearly not enough.
Well, the 4090 issue was mostly with people not getting the cables all the way seated, I think, right? Which is not like, just to be clear, not a user problem. That's a cable problem, right? If your cable doesn't give you the right feedback that lets you know when you have it in the right place, that's on the cable design, not on you. This one, the fact that it seems like they don't power balance across the different load lines on the 12 volt 2x6 is that's worrisome to me, right? I don't like, it doesn't seem like an emergency yet. It still seems like a relatively limited, like this stuff always comes out. There's always a couple of edge cases, and we're in the period right now when it's hard to know if it's, hey, this is a thing that's going to affect all of these boards. This is a thing that's going to affect 3 people. And right now we've seen, I think, a handful of people reporting issues. It doesn't seem like it's broad, but also it seems like there's a very small number of these cards out in the world. So, like I'm in wait and see mode on this right now, I think.
Well, yeah, for Roman's video specifically, DeBauer, I was he in his example he fired up Furmark, so he was essentially pulling it at maximum load. I kind of would have liked to have seen him also show just like in a gaming test, like how it's going to do, because like it depends on what you do with the GPU, right? If you're sitting there hammering it for a really long time, that's one thing. But if you're gaming and like, yeah, it's that's going to be a different use case. I'll say, and this is something I want to get to in a little bit too. Like excuse me, he did. I think it was him. I've watched so many videos. I watch too much YouTube, but I noticed somebody doing some testing with a 5090 and power limiting it, and I actually did it on my small form factor rig. So I reduced it to 70% power, but so I reduced it by 30% power, but only lost about like 5% of performance or something like that, which was like amazing. And so like, yeah, I didn't read like the full total power output from the wall to kind of see what it was, but like the GPU itself was at least reporting over 100 watts less just by doing that. So like, yeah, once again, I think it depends on what you're doing. It depends on how you're configuring it, how much you're actually loading it. Either way, like, yeah, there's more reports out there. NVIDIA, I believe, says that they're looking into the black screen stuff. But yeah, it's very, very interesting.
Well,
indeed.
And I was going to say on mine, I've noticed a lot of stability problems with the launch drivers, right? Call of Duty is black screening and rebooting on a machine with a 1300 watt power supply. The Spider-Man, which launched a little bit rough, let's say, has been pretty unstable. I haven't unfortunately had a lot of time to play other games in the last week, so I don't know what else. But the Call of Duty blue screening is a thing that I never had with a 4090 or any other. Like this machine has been really stable right up to the point that I put a 5090 in it, and then it started getting a little janky. rough launch drivers have been a problem in the past, but this feels worse than the last gen. So
How do you all feel about like rough launch drivers when it comes to a product that is in this echelon of incredibly expensive and premium? So like you're like, oh, I'm paying this much, they should get it right. But on the other hand, is basically only available to bleeding edge early adopters who have a lot of money to spend. So it's not like there's a huge audience they need to get it right for at this moment. Where do you land on that? I'm like, I don't buy $2,000 video cards, so I'm okay if I wait longer for this series to be stable, because it's going to be a while before I buy one anyway.
I mean, it feels to me like this whole launch was rushed compared to like I've been covering NVIDIA cards off and on for the last 20 years, graphics cards in general. And this one feels like they were trying desperately to get the hardware out in the channel and to reviewers so that they could establish pricing before any Taiwan tariffs landed and would eject, so that the consumers end up eating the tariff price rather than them. It doesn't make sense that they launched before Lunar New Year to me. And I feel like if you're buying a $2,000 video card, it should probably be pretty good on day one. That said, it's always hard because, like you said, like they sold a few thousand of these, it seems like, maybe at the high end. So when over the next 2 years, they'll sell millions more, and we'll have a new driver dump probably. Like they did a hotfix last week. NVIDIA did a driver hotfix last week to fix a handful of problems, which they hardly ever do. So I assume we're going to see more drivers probably sooner rather than later for the 5090.
Also, I'll point out that the laptop parts, which are, by and far, usually the laptop GPUs are the things that are more than even the desktop GPUs, have not released yet. So like there's also a part of it is like, oh, maybe are the desktop parts trying to iron out some bugs before the laptop parts come out? I'm not quite sure on that. I mean, depends on where your thinking's at. But Elena, what do you think? You seem to be somebody who really favors stability, right?
I mean, I do, but I think so with my background, just in terms of coverage, I started with video game coverage, and it was like kind of watching that progress from going from discs to relying more and more on online patches day one, and how everyone kind of decried, or like, everyone was just really frustrated with that process. But I think in general, we live in a time where we've been trained to tolerate this kind of bumpy launch as opposed to getting a finished product day one. And I think it's because the mechanisms, like in the old days, if things are, just again to use the video game analogy, things are burned to disk, or as those of us here who have been in print or publishing, I should say now, for a long time, we were in print first. So if it was going to go to press, it had to be really close to right, if not just right. Because it was so encapsulated in something that was so permanent, right? And I think as we've gotten these technologies that allow us to push these patches, push these driver updates like quickly, I think the philosophy has just shifted to, well, we're just going to get something out the door and we'll iterate from there. And I think especially with how things have gone with the pandemic, and things were just kind of bumpy in general for getting things developed. I think that's why we're seeing it trickle up almost to the high end, where, in the old days, you would think, oh, I'm spending $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 on a product. I expect it to be the best. And I think now people are just more like, well, that's my price point. I think I kind of expect that no matter what my price point, it's going to be bumpy. I'm not saying this because I agree with it or because I like it. I think that's just unfortunately the progression of how things have gone for development, because we know we have these avenues to push things immediately to fix them. We're kind of leaning harder and harder on that to kind of balance out getting things done in a timely manner. So we could probably spend a lot of time debating whether or not we like that. I think for me, just to kind of touch back on the previous topic or topic thread, which is I'm more concerned about like safety issues, right? Like I think it's one thing to have black screens, annoying, but it's not like, so even if we don't know the scope of it yet, even if we don't know how pervasive this is, if this is more like early samples versus, once they get all the production stuff ironed out kind of thing, I think it's still worth discussing, because even though it's a wait and see situation, I think it's good for people to know, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't leave that unattended. Maybe you shouldn't be pushing it as hard as possible and it's like letting your, I don't know, your benchmark, your render, whatever you're doing with that card, and letting it sit and going out of the house to catch a movie or whatever. Like maybe if you're going to do that kind of stuff, you should kind of plan to make sure it's monitored, because you don't know if you're going to be one of the unlucky ones. Or I was about to say lucky, which they are quotes. It actually is unlucky. So if you're one of the unlucky ones, then you want to just plan for that. Just kind of like how we were telling you earlier, Adam, like you should like maybe vet what you get when you plug your USB thing, like USB drive into a computer.
You get the USB drive and you plug it in. That's how you see if it's good or not, right?
On
yeah,
safety.
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Just bringing this back. That's
I like
kind of
that.
where I've been sitting with all of this.
On
So,
safety,
for me,
is it
safety
time
versus drivers? Yeah.
Is it time for the industry to move to higher voltage power supplies? Because I feel like that's the number one comment I see, like looking around at this. People are saying, oh, well, why are we at 12 volt and pushing that many amps through our wires, through our video cards? Why are we not at 24 volt? Why are we not at 48 volt?
But look, why are we still using the ATX standard at this point, Sean? That's the real question.
Yes, exactly.
Well, yeah. Well, Gordon were here, I think he'd say is because, hey, I have this 15-year-old power supply that I want to continue to keep using, and that's what people always say that they love. They're holding on to their power supply or their case, and why fix it? Because it's it's the same thing.
Is it also worth a discussion, not just about like, power limits and voltage and all that, but also like a talk about aesthetics? Because I also feel like one of the reasons why like the single connector idea is pushed is because we've gotten so accustomed in PC building to having a clean build. Like Will can talk about this. Like in the old days, you would just shove everything in a box. You just like hope nothing is catching on a fan, and like maybe zip tie something off. Or if you're like, like poor, like I was in college, you're like, okay, well, this is a plastic wrapped twist tie. I think I'm good. I'm just gonna twist that in there lightly so I don't break it open. And let's see how this goes.
Oh, you're fancy.
Look.
Also,
piece of string
Elena,
for you, right?
Elena, some real shade, Elena. This is
multiple
wars.
weeks where you're talking about how old Will is. Oh, you know what? Maybe you're getting back at him
saying
because
he
of
knows
the,
what I'm talking
it's
about.
the podcast
You started
beef.
building.
I like it.
You started building like, a little bit later when
in the 90s. Yeah, no, I did start
so...
building. I built my first computer in the 90s, Elena. Thank you. I'm very old.
I'm not that far behind you, Will.
I know.
I was just broke.
It's fine. Well,
Sean, when did you build your first PC? Let's just clear the air.
Oh gosh. I mean, do we count ones I built with my dad?
Yeah, that counts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was figuring out IRQ conflicts, so it was that old.
Nice.
There were AT, not ATX things involved.
Oh, you predate me then.
Yeah, but again, this is with help. This is not all by my lonesome.
That's family time. That's
how you
the fun
learn.
one. Yeah.
But I mean, look, we don't hide our shame as much anymore as we used to, right? It used to be that you put it all in there and then you close that door and then you didn't think about it until at some point the dust got so clogged up in there that you're like, man, my computer is crashy. What's going on? And then you open it up, you're like, oh right, yeah, I did this. Look, I'm all in favor of having fewer cables and easier designs and things like that. I think we need to rethink how ATX works. I think that, whether it's delivering the power through the board in a way that the connector is more secure, it's you look at what, like, I don't actually really like what ASUS did. Conceptually, I like what ASUS has done with the power delivery through the board on their BTF card designs. It's not forward compatible. It's not backwards compatible. It's kind of a disaster from an upgrading perspective. But like that slot connector is much more reliable and much more robust than any cable that we're going to come up with, probably, right?
But right now that's still essentially just plugging the 12 volt 2x6 into the back of the motherboard. So you're still dealing with the same cable. Yeah.
So I don't know what the solution is. This is why I don't work on at Intel or Silverstone or wherever, figuring out what the next versions of the specs are. But we're reaching the limits. And this is the thing that somebody at NVIDIA, Jensen or Tony Tomasi or somebody told me a really long time ago when the GeForce 3 came out. and I asked them what the upper limit of what they could do with graphics on the computer was, and they were like, they pointed at a wall plug and said, "Oh, it's the 1600 watts that we can pull out of a wall plug. That's the upper limit of what we can do with a personal computer." And that was in like 2003, probably 2002. So we're there. We've reached the moment where the amount of power that's coming out of the wall is the gate. And you know, we got to figure out what's next.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I like aesthetics. I also like ease of use, and plugging in the 12 2x6, as long as you're doing it, you know, and consciously and thinking about it and making sure it's secure, is still so much easier. That like on this GPU test bench, as I've been testing GPUs, I've been throwing the Radeon ones on there, and they have the 3 8-pin, and like you know, we know it's easy, but it's still like, okay, I got to plug in all those. Like it's definitely much easier to just to plug in one cable and be done. And like yeah, it's also hard because it's like I've went through. I wish I could count. I should have had like one of those little clicker things, like when people enter stores, to like count how many times I've went through insertion cycles with various 12 volt 2x6 or 12 volt high power plugs, and like I've never had a single problem. That doesn't mean there isn't a problem, but like it's also just like, okay, I don't know what the acceptable range is, right? Like this is a thing we talked about recently too, with like driverless cars. Like, what's the acceptable range of failure? You know, are we within that? Should we get mad at if only one melts and we should get mad, or should we be like, you know, it's within like 2% of ones
It's
out
not,
there? I
I
don't
don't
know.
I don't feel like this conversation is about being mad though. I think because it's a safety issue, it's more about talking about what is reasonable for like how you're pushing limits in terms of design, right? Like is it worth trying to push it in a certain way like more rapidly without having the time to maybe field test this a little bit more to see what because we're human, right? Like so like sometimes you design something and afterwards you're like, oh, I missed this one thing, or I did this thing that I didn't intend for this other thing to happen. So I don't think it's a question in the way that you're saying it. I think it's more of a we're just kind of considering like, is this the best approach to making this change, to like pushing things forward?
Well, but I mean, at the same time, like running Furmark for hours on end is not a realistic workload, right? Like it hits the GPU harder than anything else you can probably do with your computer, short of maybe some AI workloads that I'm not familiar with.
Sure.
It's kind of the equivalent of taking your car and putting it on a dyno and running it at 4,000 RPMs, and then coming back 10 hours later and being like, wow, the motor blew up. I can't believe it. Right.
Fair.
So,
But
yeah.
But I want to insert just real quick because I think you're focusing just on Der Bauer's findings.
Yeah.
But I think because the whole reason this conversation was kicked off originally is because the person who reported it was just playing a game. Like they were just playing, I think was it Battlefield 5? So like that's not the same as doing a Furmark stress test. So, I mean, you're right that like Furmark is not an accurate representation of how people are going to use the card. But I think it's an important detail that the whole thing that kicked off this whole conversation we're having was a normal use case.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was running the 5090 in my SFF, and it's you know, it's a small, I do have a lot of drives in my PC, and I've got like 5 solid state drives in there, but 1,000 watt power supply with a 5090 in there, and I measured it at the wall, and it was drawing over 1,000 watts from a 1,000 watt power supply with just a normal processor and a 5090 in there, and maybe a couple extra solid state drives more than I should probably have.
And I'm like, okay, so out of curiosity, Sean,
it's a 5800X, 5800X. Okay. So, but you know, not an super efficient processor, but not a crazy inefficient processor either. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a lot. I don't think I've ever had a computer actually draw the full kilowatt before, because I don't usually go for high-end components. Maybe that's fine. Maybe that's totally fine. But in general, I feel like these GPUs are getting too large, too expensive, too power hungry. And I would love to see something flip those trends, particularly if there's a stick in the form of people's computers catching fire to go along with the carrots of maybe they can sell more of them to more people if they aren't so big, hot, and heavy.
Yeah, well, I think even though we had the 4090 stuff and now early reports of the 5090, I did see also people pointing out like, hey, did we see 4080s? Like anything lower than that? Uh, have a issue as well. So yeah, this is once again maybe one of those things is like if you're buying high end, if you're buying a $2,000 GPU, guess what? Good luck. You're gonna have to worry about cables and bad drivers, uh,
Well,
because you're the bleeding edge. You know, it's okay.
but I mean, part of this is that they've pushed what used to be a niche, not even an enthusiast, but a professional product into the mainstream, right? So when these were called Titan cards, nobody bought them because they're like, oh, that's not for me. That's a workstation GPU compute. It's for people who don't play games. And when they put them in the same naming scheme as the 4080, which had the 80 series had previously been the top of the line gaming card, they set a different expectation and they expanded the market really dramatically. And like the downside of that is people who don't like, if you're building a workstation and you're putting a Titan card, a 3080 Titan in it, you knew what you were doing, because it was actually kind of hard to get a case that would fit one of those things and a power supply that would run that thing. And now that this is the top of the top of the line, they've opened themselves up to this whole other world of problems as a result. And like I said, I think we don't know. The fact that the cable was burnt on both ends and melted through on one side is really worrisome to me on the user that sent that machine into Debauer. But yeah, I like I said, we're really not going to know how widely spread the problem is until they actually start shipping cards. And now that New Year's is over and the factories are open again, maybe that'll start happening.
Well, we can wrap up this discussion with a question from Boria Zero. He says, "Is it finally time to call the piece of 12-volt high power connector a piece of connector for the piece of that it really is, or should we just give it another 2 years of pretending that there's nothing wrong with it and it's just user error?"
Look, I was really blown away when I was testing some old cards and I plugged a 3080 into my machine to test something. And I looked it up and it was like, yeah, you can just plug the 12-volt high power into the 3080 and it works. And I was like, that doesn't sound right. And it worked. And I was really surprised. So it's not really a ringing endorsement on the 12-volt high power. I think at this point we have to look and say, hey, maybe there's enough smoke that there's fire there. But I guess props to them for making it forwards compatible. That's backwards compatible, I guess.
It was backwards, I
Wait,
think.
you had a reverse dongle that went from 12-volt high power to 3
The 12 no the 3080 was that weird in between one. Remember, it was a 12, it was a 2 6-pin connector,
right.
but it didn't have the 4-pin hat, the signal hat. So
for some reason I only thought it was the 3090 and 3090 Ti that had that.
I think some of the 3080s didn't use just the normal ATX power.
Okay. Yeah, because I
power,
only had
yeah.
EVGA ones. I never had a Founders 3080. So okay.
Yeah. So I have a Founders 3080. When I was testing stuff, I was like, oh crap, I got to go find that cable. And then I looked it up and I didn't, because God only knows where that cable is at this point.
Yeah, label everything,
he might not
man.
even know. Yeah.
It's tempting not to, but you gotta label everything immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And there's people in the chat also pointing out like it is within spec. You know, do you trust that? Because this isn't just an NVIDIA thing. There's a whole PCIe like board that got together that includes NVIDIA, Intel, a bunch of the power supply manufacturers. Sure. So this isn't just NVIDIA. Like supposedly there's reports that maybe they pushed this on the group. But still, it's the group that came together and certified this as a spec, right?
I think it's a little immaterial though, like who's behind it in some ways for the purpose of this discussion, right? Like, I mean, that's definitely a relevant piece of information for other conversations, but I think whether or not we're debating if it's in spec or not, to me, is kind of irrelevant, because if the spec is bad, then it doesn't matter if it's in spec, you know? And I don't mean that the spec is just, what I mean is that if there's a flaw in the spec, then that needs to be addressed, regardless if it's part of the spec.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think it's just like, okay, well, then you got to go back to that whole regulatory board and be like, okay, well, why didn't you find this flaw? The whole board needs to, sign off and be like, okay, this is a flaw and we need to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think going back to Sean's point earlier, the whole like how you would love to see more of a return to power efficiency and, maybe not necessarily just driving as much power through these cards as possible, as much juice as possible through these cards, just to get best performance. I feel like this is a mirror of what we've seen on the CPU side, right? Like with Intel, and like how the pendulum is now swinging back. But I think that one of the problems on the GPU side, unfortunately, is that because there's just this very lopsided market share, right? You don't have that same kind of pressure to have at least like one side pushing the other to be like, well, this guy is not doing, this person's not doing that, or this company's not doing this, but we are. And I'm not saying that, I mean, engineering is engineering. I think people tend to move in groups already because they see a trend and they respond to it. But I think it helps when you have multiple entities kind of pushing on each other to further the adoption of a trend. And I don't know if we have that on this side because we have one company that's really just pushing all the forward momentum. So they don't have something to respond to. So like you, I would love. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sure you've talked about it on a previous Full Nerd, but do we think AMD is going to make a return back to pushing on high-end GPUs, or are they done with that? Certainly they're paused right now, but...
Look, for audio listeners, everyone's shrugging.
NVIDIA's, and we talked about this a little bit last week, but NVIDIA is such an enormous company and has so much money to spend on this stuff that graphics performance for games has become a secondary driver of their silicon choices at this point, right? And they're still absolutely romping. I can't remember what the number was, but the market cap of AMD versus NVIDIA is such that NVIDIA is worth hundreds of AMDs. Was that it? I think I can't remember.
I think we like just like 2.5 or 3 times or something. We were like doing the math.
Yes. So unless something dramatic changes in terms of like relative R&D budgets, I would be very surprised if AMD becomes competitive at the 90 series card again.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, whether it's AMD or NVIDIA, I think the like just pushing pure hardware jumps, like are we at the end of the
we talked about that last week.
Yeah. The
I almost wonder though.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think AMD is going to push NVIDIA at the high end anytime soon. But I think that cards are going in the wrong direction to such a degree that if AMD was like, we're going to do a 70 series card tier, and which I think they're doing, and the price was so competitive that NVIDIA's like, oh crap, we've got all these high-end cards that nobody can buy, nobody can afford, and people are worried about. And the alternative is, here is a sane card from AMD that does the power thing right price, great performance for that money. Does that make NVIDIA rethink? Does that put enough pressure on NVIDIA? Or does NVIDIA just say, oh, well, that's cute. We'll just cut the price of our cards by this much and we're good?
I mean, those changes happen over a long period of time in terms of what the hardware actually does, right? So the only lever they really have is pricing at once the cards are in market. And I assume that if they start to see market share erode, they're going to cut pricing. And I think that's a really big if, because it seems like they've built a really enormous moat around themselves with stuff like DLSS, which people, DLSS and ray tracing are large moats for games right now.
So. Yeah,
can't disagree.
Also, once again, I mean, we're talking about big NVIDIA market share, like 90% by some reports that we've seen out there. That's also a majority of it is in laptops as well, where sure, maybe even if AMD could counter on desktops, like in the laptop space, that's still a whole separate conversation. And NVIDIA has, still a very strong foothold over there.
I mean, the one thing AMD has going for it is that they're building the APUs presumably for both the consoles, both the current gen consoles. Presumably that'll go forward the next gen consoles, whatever those may be, and that does give them, a strong base upon which to build, and helps their market share look a lot better when you compare it across the entire kind of enthusiast games market rather than just PC stuff.
Right. which is why I think like having strong desktop presence is like a good thing, but they're killing it in handhelds. You know, they obviously own the console market. I mean, except for the Switch, but that's kind of a separate thing in my mind.
Is that a segue I smell?
Ooh.
Sure.
Fingers on
Well,
the
no,
button.
actually, no, because there's one last thing. One last
Oh.
thing I wanted to talk about. Is Zotac came out and was like, "Hey, listen, we know that pre-orders suck, so we're gonna try to figure this out." My first question is though, we've been having pre-order problems and scalping and bots and all this stuff for years. Like, how come nobody's ever figured this out?
No, it's happened before. I just think maybe we should explain to everyone what we were talking about because I think we were jumping ahead with the conversation.
Sorry,
without
Elena, do you
giving
want
context.
to explain the Zotac?
I mean, I think I will summarize it very briefly and fill in details.
go
But
for
just to keep everything moving, is that basically Zotac came out and said like, hey, we're going to do it as a bundle, if I remember right, and it's also I think through our Discord server. So like it kind of narrows the channel for like availability. But correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, because you're actually the one who brought up the news brief to us.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the bundle part specifically, but yeah,
It might
like
be
they're
merging. We've been talking a lot about like different avenues for how to get things into people's hands. Like, do you rest in peace? But EVGA's program was really great, right? As a way to give people the ability to have a shot at a card without it being a bunch of hoops to jump through. Other retailers do it as bundles, and we discussed some ludicrous ones offline before the show. I think Zotax, I think probably conflating a couple of things, but I think Zotax was like through their Discord server, maybe. Like you had a
well,
shot
and
through it.
yeah, and I actually I linked to the article in the description from one Mike Kreider over at PCWorld, talking about Zotac fights GPU scalpers by selling RTX 50 series on Discord. To
That's what it was.
circumvent scalper tactics, Zotac is offering a few 5080 cards to its most loyal Discord server members. So
Is this like a, hey man, you want a card? I got a Venmo. Just hit me the number and I'll get it over to you tomorrow.
But it's the official.
Yeah.
It's actually listed as official Zotac.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Like that's the Venmo handle.
Yeah. Official Zotac at gmail.com. Just Venmo me your money, man. I'll get you want 50. I got 5090s for now. Let's go down to the warehouse and pull one out.
I feel like Zotac has some rep they need to make up. So when the 3080 scalping was happening, they were the ones who cranked up their prices by the most. I want to say of any board partner that I saw. I was just looking up one of my old stories, and then they did it not transparently at all. I had to like look at the Wayback Machine. Their 3090s were like $1,550, and then they made it $1,580, and then $1,900. Like, oh yeah, we can get some of that scale for money, can't we? So I'm curious, what is Zotac selling for now? These ones that it's selling on its Discord, is it making a bunch of extra money by being its own scalper, or is it like we're doing these at close to what our MSRP would be?
Good question. Yeah, and right now it seems to also only be 5080s. So like like maybe you're right. Maybe this is just hey, look over here. We're doing something nice. Everyone's pissed, and we're doing something nice. But it's
also just
a little bit more
stock though for 5090s.
Yeah. I mean, either way, there's obviously been this problem going on for years and years. So like I guess Sean, like why haven't companies figured this out, or do they not even care to figure this out? Like because they're selling stock anyway, and they don't care if it goes to a bot or a scalper or a real person.
I really think that's it. That they really don't care all that much at the end of the day. I think it's expensive, and would take a lot of thought to build a system that's not going to get broken into by very smart scalpers who create entire bot farms and now can, I don't know, make AI agents that can act more like humans in terms of like the traffic and the patterns of like how they click on websites and things like that. I don't think that there's like an easy solution. I imagine it would be an expensive solution. I'm going to Japan in March, and so we wanted to go to this Ghibli museum. And so I was like, oh, I wonder how we're going to get tickets for this. Well, I loaded up a computer, and so did some friends and family, and we hopped into a virtual queue that appeared ahead of time for this Japanese convenience store website that we were going to buy the tickets for the Studio Ghibli Museum through. And one of our screens said it was, we were 10,000th in line, and one of them was like 30,000th in line. One of my friends got in around the 3,000 mark, and he got some tickets for us, and so we're going. Not all at the same time, but because there was a meaningful queue system, and whatever luck happened, he managed to get some. And the rest of us sat around for a long time, not knowing whether or not we would get in. And all of us who were far back in line, the website said very clearly in front of us, these tickets may be gone by the time you get there. But when the tickets sold out, it didn't dismiss us. It let us keep waiting forever. So maybe they're also worried about that. Maybe those who might implement a line system are worried about, well, if we do that and then people wait a long time and still don't get in, they're going to be angrier than if they show up right away and don't get in.
Well, and I was looking at the Nintendo Museum in Japan as well, and like they have a lottery system. So 3 months ahead of time, you enter a lottery for the chance to be drawn to go. It's like.
Yeah. But I think so. I think actually, I think everything you said, Sean, absolutely 100% agree. But I also think that story, because it reminds me exactly of waiting in line for the virtual queue for Comic-Con tickets. I think it's just there's actually a massive amount of infrastructure that has to go into that. And that's, as you said, that's expensive. Like that's not just investing in the technology to make it work. It's also having personnel available to troubleshoot if it goes wrong, having like, if you're good about that, you have like basically customer support people or PR people so that you can massage the messaging around it in case things go wrong, or to direct people because people are notoriously terrible at following directions and then they get angry when they don't follow directions. So there's a lot. I'm speaking as someone who worked in retail. I just want to be clear. And so it's a lot. So I think that's what made a program like EVGA so special, because they were willing to put themselves out there and invest that set of resources from their own, other things they could be doing in that.
Well, I mean, yeah, you see, like Newegg did the lottery system during the pandemic when supplies were so competitive, and it was a thing that they like. I assume that when you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, should we spend money on this, or should we spend money on something else that's actually going to impact every product that we sell versus a small volume of a tiny number of products that will probably only be an issue for like 3 months at the outside? Or do we do something that's going to make the site better for every single customer that hits every single page on the site every time we do it? And during the pandemic, clearly the answer was for Newegg, yes, we should invest money in this, because otherwise people are never going to be able to get webcams and they're all going to go crazy and people are going to come for us with torches and pitchforks.
Well, that's what they wanted, webcams.
Yeah, they wanted webcams. But when you look at right now, typically these cards are in really short supply for a period of weeks or months, and then they start becoming more readily available, and then pretty soon you can go to Best Buy and buy one if you want. And I think I think it's just a risk. It's just a cost benefit. Like it's a simple cost benefit decision for them. Like Elena said, the queues create an enormous amount of ill will when they don't work. So, and you get, the only way you can really test some of that stuff is to do it live. Maybe the way to do it is to embrace the infrastructure around buying fancy sneakers, because of all the places where they've figured this stuff out, the sneaker people seem to have it right more often than not. And just everybody's like low grade pissed all the time instead of really pissed at spikes when stuff goes wrong.
Question though, Will, I don't follow sneakers. I know one of our colleagues does.
Don't. It's a bad place.
It's a rabbit hole. I know it's a rabbit hole, but that's exactly what I was about to ask.
Wait, Sean, are you a sneaker person? Sorry, real quick.
No.
Okay.
I do have the Guinness World Record NVIDIA sneakers from Envision 08 sitting up in a box. But those are the only ones.
Wow.
I love the little drop of info right there. Nice.
Because there was that world's longest LAN party, Guinness World Record they were going for. I was like, okay, so I got that souvenir.
Okay.
Nice.
But that's it. So if anybody really wants those, let me know.
But I was going to say is that I feel like limited edition sneakers and special drops happens more frequently. So I think there's also more incentive for them to get this right. And so they can also maybe almost, I'm not a business person, but my guess is that they could basically spread the cost for investing in this kind of system over a broader amount of drops. Whereas this happens every 2 years for
Yeah.
GPUs, really. So and it's interspersed over the course of the year, and it's not. I mean, sneakers, basic footwear is a human necessity, but collectible sneakers not so much. However, I would say even more so, a GPU is definitely not a necessity unless you're sitting home in a pandemic and you need a reason to not go crazy while you're sitting at home. So I think that also probably prompted some of the attitudes from the retailers about how they were going to handle it, right? Because now it's like you don't get a GPU. I think someone in chat just said, like, I just go for a walk. I'm like, I'm not buying
Wow.
any more GPUs. I'm just going to go out for a walk.
That's some
That's a
shade
flex.
right there.
That's a flex. Yeah. I mean,
but-
instead of this podcast, we should just go for a walk.
Maybe we should.
Nerds.
But yeah, I think that's the big thing, right? And you think about like the sneaker people have reached a point where it doesn't, like, their systems don't break, right? Like they know how much load they're going to get. They know what the demand is. The bots know how to interact with the machine so that you get squeezed out by the bot and then you go buy your shoe on eBay, and that's exactly the system. The system is working as intended, I guess. You look at, my wife was talking, we were talking about this the other day about something unrelated, and she's like, well, why don't they just take pre-orders? I was like, okay, so if you know you can make X number of t-shirts a month, right? Like you're making a custom t-shirt and you can make X number a month. That's what your supplier can provide. And you get to the point that you have a month's worth of backlog, right? And then you cut off pre-orders. Why don't you let people keep going? Why don't you let people go out to 6 months? It's because in 6 months, your pre-order pops up, your credit card has already been charged, you've moved every single one of those sales. The number of customer service problems you have, the longer the time between the order being placed and the sale being fulfilled, the larger the number of, this is a thing that people who run Kickstarters understand really quickly. Like if your Kickstarter takes 3 years to fulfill, fully half of your transactions are going to require a human touch because the person's going to move, their credit card's going to have changed. They live in different countries in some cases, so they owe more duty or less duty, or you have to refund or whatever, or they just don't want the thing anymore. And then you've made it and you're stuck with it. And like or they bought it from somebody else. They've like, oh, I found it on eBay, so I don't need the one from you anymore. Go to hell. All of this adds to your overhead. And it causes customer service problems for you, which let me tell you, the one thing Newegg and all of these vendors want to avoid more than anything else is having an angry customer calling somebody on the phone, because there's a tangible cost associated with that. So yeah, that's why this sucks right now.
What about the lotteries, though? If the lottery infrastructure existed for pandemic, why isn't it being reused?
Because the bots were hitting the lottery infrastructure real hard. It's not like fighting the bots is an endless upstream battle. It's the Douglas Adams in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy described it when he was describing flagging down spaceships with the electronic thumb. This is an old guy reference, but half of the scientists in the world were working on making the electric thumb work better, and the other half were working on blocking the electronic thumb. It's the same thing. Like all the bot people, half of them are making the bots better, half of them are fighting the bots, and it's just a never-ending battle. Who's winning?
I have a proposal, and if anybody from EVGA is listening, I would like to say, like, whatever your system was, maybe you could actually make that a product you sell to other companies, because it was great.
Yeah,
just invest in that.
Yeah. All right. Well, you heard it here first on the Full Nerd. It sounds like everyone is telling me that that people out there just need to accept that bots and scalpers are going to be a thing for the rest of time. So just suck it up. There's nothing.
Wow, he's just starting beef with the internet, Adam. That's a lot of beef to start, dude. We don't have the resources to deal with that.
Adam,
we just got to take on service? Brad and we'll make a tech pod.
We could do what Ticketmaster did. They could just say, hey, once you buy a video card, it's going to be locked to your computer forever. You can never put in another computer. It only works. Adam Patrick Murray bought this video card. It's only good in Adam Patrick Murray's computer. And if you want to go and use video games with Adam Patrick Murray, if you want to use video games with this card, Adam Patrick Murray has to be sitting in front of that computer for it to work. Because that's the way Ticketmaster works now.
Oh my God. Can you imagine just how terrible that would be for customer service complaints too? It's like the worst of like the Microsoft verification system where like your freaking motherboard eats it. So you have to replace it. And now you're like, they did a good job with it. Microsoft did. But can you just imagine how bad it would be if there wasn't Microsoft level of like ability to invest in it?
Look, they were bad at it for a while too. It used to be you had to call every single time you wanted to reinstall Windows. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
I just want a bust of Adam that I can hold up in front of the camera. And I need to use my 5090, and that's like it's like, oh, can you blink and look up a little
Your
bit?
face
Yeah, okay.
ID.
Well,
Your
you can play
face
Spider-Man
face
now.
ID.
Yeah.
Actually, Elena, you don't know this because you weren't in the office, but we recently found out
Oh, this is bad.
that not
Oh, here we
only
go.
can I unlock Will's phone with my voice, I can engage Siri with my voice on his phone. He can do the same thing on mine.
Really? I mean, that's happened before. I've seen that. Like voice recognition is not particularly that tied to a particular voice. It's not very good. Can't even understand what I don't know what it is, but automated voice systems like phone trees never understand what I'm saying. And it's like, look, English is my only language. This is concerning. I'm pretty sure I enunciate clearly.
Well, no, I
this
think
is
that's
really
your problem.
scary for me.
Is that it's built for people who don't enunciate, and
Yeah.
it's like this person is speaking clearly. I don't understand you. You need to slur your words a little bit more.
Didn't they build some of these systems advertising that, even twins couldn't get through? I don't know which one that was. It probably wasn't Siri. But.
We were able to get Touch ID we were able to copy Touch ID off of a fingerprint from a glass using Scotch tape and graphite, which I think was from Sneakers or from Beverly Hills Cop 2. I can't remember which one, but that worked almost 100% of the time. And then I don't know if you can fool modern Face ID. You used to be able to fool early Face ID with a head sculpt, like a cast. Like you'd do a cast of somebody's face and make a rubber head.
You like Mission Impossible 3?
Yeah, that would work pretty reliably.
Okay.
Should we talk about your external GPUs real quick, Adam?
Yeah, we want to go some fun stuff instead of just
GPUs.
all the depressing stuff.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Too much GPU stuff. Well, fun GPU stuff. Yes, let's go over to
doing
new
more arm
handheld
curls here.
testing because we've been doing. Sean and I love handhelds. We do. Not saying Will doesn't love handhelds. He also loves handhelds.
Look, I think that's the one
Elena's,
true way to play PC games at this point is on the handheld. No, like desktop PCs, it's out. Steam Deck, that's where it's at, baby.
On your
You
way
know
out.
what though? I gotta say, as a random aside, suddenly everything makes sense. So this is like completely just random tidbit about Adam. He has like some of the smallest font I've ever seen on a phone. Like his eyes are so good still, but it makes sense to me why he likes handhelds because it doesn't bother him that's a small screen. Like meanwhile, I'm like competing with like, an 80-year-old grandpa for like the size of this like text on my screen. I'm just like, make it larger. I don't want to have to work my eyes.
You just need to get longer arms, Elena. That's the secret.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so Sean, big handheld lover, big lover of doing dumb stuff like myself. The first question I have for you is from the chat. Friend of the show, Datus asks, "Does Sean like to smell handhelds? Are you a handheld sniffer?
A hand smeller?
No. The handheld.
I regret to
sniffer.
inform everyone that I do sniff the vent on my handheld when it is blowing out a sufficient quantity of air.
I'm not alone. I'm not the weird one.
Wait, do we have
I'm
to
not
have
the
like
only
some
weird
kind
one.
of like handheld like fans like checklist starter pack? I don't know like what the meme is anymore. Where it's like
Handheld
that must
fans?
love huffing the air from a vent.
Oh.
Also for audio listeners, I wish I should have taken a screenshot of Will's face at the very moment that Sean admitted this because it was a fantastic face.
Yeah. Well,
Jaws
good.
are
See,
sore now.
Sean's a
Valve
good
has
one.
addressed this. It's such a meme that Valve has said, nope, don't do this. We do not condone this. I don't like do it
good stuff.
often. It's not like a habit or anything. It's just every now and then you'll be like, oh, I wonder how much air this thing's blowing out. It's hot, right? And then your nose gets into it too. What can I say?
Oh, my nose fell on this handheld vent.
Sometimes the spray paint falls into the bag, and then next thing I know, I have a gold mouth. It just happens. I don't know how it get there.
Is that what you told the cops, Will?
Yeah, man. I was just out painting the in the backyard, and the next thing I knew, I was in the lockup downtown. Ossifer, I didn't do nothing.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So bring this back around. Like, I know we're kind of getting a little bit silly here, which is great. However, what honestly, like one of the questions I had for both of you is like, what outside of can I do this for the sake of doing this? Like, what compelled you to try this outside of just because I could? Because there's got to be more reasons, right?
And by
Right.
this, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that is the answer. And by this, for people who don't know, Sean wrote an awesome article over on TheVerge.com. I don't know if you heard about it, where he did this. He plugged a Founders Edition 5090 into a Minis Forum Oculink based eGPU, plugged it into his GDP Win Max 2 2024 edition.
Yeah, this
right?
is the 8840U model, which is
Is that the little baby
also
laptop
here on my
I was...
desk. Sorry for all the
It is. It's
Yeah.
the one I want.
so fun.
Yeah, and played games with it. So, Sean, why'd you do this? Back to Elena's question. Why'd you do this?
Let's see. So I play with cool toys, and I wanted to for a while now. Actually, I'd been looking to do more with eGPUs because I do think that there's really something to this dream. I've been chasing this dream on and off since, I don't know, was it 2014 that Alienware came out with the amplifier? Was it 2012? I'm not sure.
Ford loved the amplifier.
Yeah. Okay. So Alienware graphics amp. Alienware was like, we are going to bring out a laptop that could be small, but play like it's big, like it's a desktop. And we'll have our proprietary connector that goes out to this box. That's your docking solution, and it'll do your USB, and it'll give you the power of this desktop graphics card and all this kind of stuff. I don't think they were the first to ever pursue GPUs, but they were one of the first to like bring it in commercialize it in a package that maybe regular gamers who consider PC computers could buy. And so I played with this thing, the first future-proof gaming laptop, quote unquote. And it was super cool, but it was kind of proprietary, and the USB stuff didn't work as well as it could. And then over time, we're like, well, we're getting the single cable docking solution as USB gets better and better. USB 2, USB...
Theoretically.
When we get to 3 and C, and then Thunderbolt, and we're like, okay, there's a lot of bandwidth, and it can do all the things. And one of those things could be several lanes of PCI Express for your graphics card. I'm like, okay, this is great. But bunch of issues, and maybe not enough bandwidth, and maybe weirdness. And then all of a sudden we hear about Oculink, which I guess comes from servers originally. It's this very small cable. Looks kind of like a mini display port cable. Oh boy, my camera's doing things.
It looks like an
do the
eSAT
beauty influencer
almost.
thing.
Yeah.
You got to put your hand behind it, so
I gotta put my hand behind it. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we go. Like a fashion blogger.
Yeah,
there
see,
you go.
know what to do. And it's got the little locking little bits on it, like mini display port, or sorry, like the full size display port. Excuse me. And then and so this thing, you can't hot plug it, but it just gives you all the bandwidth for your eGPU. The full 4 lanes of PCI Express. I guess it's 64 gigatransfers is I guess what it is. And I was like, we've got these things. I'm planning to do them, test them in some of my videos. These eGPUs that connect over Oculink and USB 4. And then the 5090 lands on my desk. And I'm like, okay, well, got the fastest graphics card. I've got a handheld. Maybe we should put these things together. And I loved your video, Will and Patrick. Or sorry, Will and Adam, where you're like at the beginning, you're like physically trying to stick the card into the full graphics card, just the 16x slot. Let's just get that right in the handheld.
I wanted to jam it in peanut butter, but Adam wouldn't let me. He was like, if we put that in peanut butter, people are gonna be really upset.
Wait, what?
What?
Can you explain this
Jam
reference?
it in there. Okay, right?
It's the chocolate
nice
and
pun.
peanut,
I
two
appreciate
great
the pun.
tastes that go great together, right? You got your chocolate and my peanut butter. I got my peanut butter on your chocolate, and then that's how the Reese's cup was made. We were making Reese's cups. That's the metaphor.
Okay.
So this is why I like Sean, because on the in our man cave thing, I was doing the same exact thing, benchmarking a 5090 and being like, God, I really want to see how this performs in an eGPU. Right. And so yeah, no, and then so I did a video over on PCWorld, essentially using the same hardware. The only difference was the GPD. The one I have is the 2025, which is the Strix point. And I'm not going to take credit for the stupid thing we did at the beginning of the video, because that was actually, we were just tired. That was the last thing we
it was
filmed
like
that day.
4 o'clock that day.
And Alex, our fabulous editor, was the one who edited it together and put the little sound effects behind it.
It beautifully sets the tone for the whole thing, though, because I came at this like, this is going to be the future someday, even if it's dumb now. And you're coming at it like, this is so dumb now, but it's so much fun. We're going to do it anyhow. And to come full circle, I do think it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Will.
No. I was just gonna say, like, I think everybody's touched this fire at some point, right? Like, I bought a Razer Blade the first year they came out, and when you bought it directly from Razer and waited 3 weeks for it to get here from Hong Kong, then they sent you a free eGPU enclosure. I was like, hell yes, this is the
Nice.
moment. I have this. I only have to deal with one computer. I'm just gonna put this on my desk. I'm gonna put a 2080 in it or whatever the I think, maybe even a 980. I can't remember. It was a long time ago, and it's gonna be incredible. And then it was fine. Like it was like a thunderbolt over USB. Honestly, kind of meh in the end, because like it only had 4 lanes of PCI Express or something, and the video card was always, and the fans on that laptop always sounded like a jet engine the moment the CPU did anything. So it turns out I just kept using the desktop computer. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put the eGPU. It's like it holds my door open when I want to keep the office door open at this point.
Wow, what an undignified end to your life.
Look,
you just go from being a hot piece of hardware to just being a doorstop.
So look, the thing I'll say is that I was doing VR work then, and it was really nice when I had to do VR demos to not have to carry a small form factor and a monitor and a bunch of power strips and I like to carry 2 or 3 things. And that was a life-changing, like it was great for that period of time. And then I got a big MSI laptop with an integrated 1080 mobile in it and a discrete 1080 mobile in it. And I didn't need to carry around the external GPU anymore.
Sorry.
It is literally a doorstop.
But to your earlier point, to your earlier point, Will, like,
yeah.
If you have if you believe that there's any grain of truth to the idea that like maybe handheld gaming is PC gaming in the future, then like for those of us, and maybe you don't, but for those of us who are like, Steam Deck has like brought me back to PC gaming because I was tired of all that desktop stuff, or I never got into that desktop stuff, and now I can just play this giant library of games on the go. But the one thing I do like about PC gaming, I'm imagining someone else. There's many things I like about PC gaming. But imagine if you're this person, and the one thing I do like about PC gaming is, and you can upgrade it down the road, and you can add all this extra power in it. Is there maybe a market for, I have my Steam Deck, and I bring it home, and I stick my 5080 into it, and now it's my desktop. And then 4 years from now, I stick a 7080 into it, or a 6080 into it, and look at how much more power I got just by dropping a new graphics card into it. I don't have to mess with solid state drives or memory or cables or compatibility or motherboard. I just drop one component in, and now I have upgradability.
But you're talking about a $300 box or $400 box and a $1,000 video card, right? Like I think that's like the problem. The problem is with the handheld stuff is that generally the hard handhelds are relatively inexpensive, right? I mean, I know that the ones that have Oculink ports probably less so, but in the handheld world, the thing I want, it turns out, isn't the fast Windows handheld that Asus or Lenovo or whoever's selling. I want the one that Valve sells that runs the version of Linux that does all of the PC gaming stuff so that I don't have to worry about settings or drivers or any of that. And I can hand that to my kid and she can play PC games and they just work and I don't have to maintain another Windows machine. That's
a console?
Yeah, I want a console, but I want one that hooks up to my Steam account and she can play games from my Steam account so I don't have to buy all the games that I've already bought for me for her again.
But
Simple.
Will, that's different than what he's talking about, because it's the same thing I'm chasing too. Like I have 3 computers that I have to actively update and change. So actually, no, 4 if you think about it, right? It's like I have I know
this is life we live,
problems,
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I have
problems.
a PC in the living room for the living room gaming. That's where I do my gaming. I have a workstation here. Actually, I don't have it hooked up right now. I have a laptop that I bring into and from work, and then I game on a handheld. What if it could just be one? What if, depending on the use case, I have an eGPU in the living room that I plug in to game. Yeah. Or I take a laptop around, like so. I get this. Yeah. So the Steam Deck isn't going to work for that. Like, there's no future where the Steam Deck could also be my work machine.
Why not? It's 2025.
Not for me.
Oh, no.
Windows 10's going away. It's your Linux time, baby.
You're the Linux conversation again.
You're right.
But
I should just accept the Linux future. No. Here's
the thing. I think like having walked this path before, I love your enthusiasm. I think it's great that you're following this. I think you should go. I think, like, look, if you're huffing the solder flux from the back of the Steam Deck and it makes you feel happy, then that's good. But I don't think that this is, I think realistically, it's hard to walk away from the power of a real, like, I don't want to use a gaming laptop as my main day-to-day driver. I don't want to use a gaming handheld as my main day-to-day driver, because when I'm using a laptop for work, I need something that's really reliable and that's robust and that can survive a couple of drops probably, and that I can chuck in my bag and isn't going to turn on midway through a flight and heat up my bag. And the gaming laptops I've used don't meet that standard pretty consistently. And the Windows gaming handhelds I've used don't meet that standard. I don't think that we are there as a market yet. If Lenovo was putting Oculink ports on their ThinkPads, maybe we can have a different conversation. But
I am fascinated by this conversation as almost like a third-party observer at this point, because for audio listeners, as Will is talking, Adam just has a smile on his face, like, "Cool story, bro." Like, it's just like,
That's exactly what I want.
I'm not connecting to any of this.
Here comes the beef.
But I feel like you all are having like two separate conversations, which I find fascinating. Which I think Will is kind of talking about the whole like convenience, usability aspect of it. And I feel like Adam and Sean, you're talking more about the excitement you get when you basically are like, so everything the Switch does, I want to do with PC gaming. And now I get to do that. And because I finally get to do that, why not see how ludicrously I can do that? Which is a sentiment I can totally understand. So my question is, as somebody who is not kind of wrestling this a little bit off your path, Will, we can get back to it.
Good.
But this is the question I've been sitting on for a little bit. I'm curious, what do you, from having gone to this far end extreme, because I think Will has a great point, which is like, why are you pairing? I mean, in the case of Sean's, like the little, like, was it the little Linux machine you have that's almost like a mini laptop? That's not a cheap one. That's like 1,000, 1,200, right?
Yeah.
Whereas,
So it's
like,
not Linux, it's Windows.
The GPD is
oh,
Windows.
is it? Okay.
It's $1,000
Yeah.
though.
That's great.
We
It's
will install
1,000.
Bazzite on it, and then it will be Linux.
Yeah.
But,
So it's not
another story
pairing
for
a
another day.
$300, $400 piece of hardware with a $2,500 piece of hardware. You're pairing something almost more desktop or laptop like with a very high-end GPU. I'm wondering, for the people who are curious about your experiment, who haven't read the article, who haven't watched the video, how ludicrous was this? Like, where do you actually find, what did you find to be more a reasonable sweet spot outside of just because I did it? Like, where would you actually land on this as a place that you would recommend for people who are interested in doing this? Like, how would you pair these things?
Presently, I wouldn't recommend it really at all.
At all? Okay. Will's throwing his hands up in victory here.
We need real, like, do everything connections. Oculink is just the GPU. And for many people, that's a feature, not a bug, is that it's just your graphics lanes. And so you've got that unadulterated bandwidth for the graphics card, and you get a substantial amount of the performance without thinking about, is my USB going to work or not? But theoretically, Thunderbolt 5, or a future version of USB, yeah, I see Adam rolling some eyes over there, could
like the future is now.
Take your lightweight laptop or handheld and allow it to have this and charge at the same time, and do your USB at the same time, and all the other things that you want when you have a single cable docking solution that is hot pluggable, instead of this thing where I have to shut down my computer and then turn it on, plug the GPU, and you plug the GPU and turn that on, then turn the computer on in the right order.
It has to be the right order. Yeah, that's like, you just put a little post-it next to it to remind you to turn off the GPU last, or else the whole thing blue screens your entire PC out. Then you have
Oculink is not the future of this. No.
But it's
but to your more general question. Yeah.
It's an iteration though, right? On the process. Because like, as you started talking about the whole Alienware machine, like before then there were eGPUs, but we have an article from one of our writers about homemade DIY eGPU setups. And that's really where that space was before. And so this is almost, I would say it is the commercialization, making it much more accessible to people who want it as an option. I know when we were covering this before, we would get emails, not necessarily from people who wanted to game on this, but they like were more like, oh, this is so much more portable for like these huge compute tasks that I was doing for like university research, even like those are the kind of emails we would get in relation to these articles. And so I know you weren't done. I got a little excited. I jumped right in. But I guess to add a follow-up question to whatever you're going to finish with is, do you see this progression as actually building to get to that place you would want to see it, where it is hot swap or hot pluggable and easy, and you don't have to go through these steps? Nodding.
Will PC manufacturers and Intel come to some kind of agreement on how much they're going to have to pay to put this into a laptop or handheld that would make it reasonable to bring out such a computer at a reasonable price? Right now, the only machines that have historically had very powerful Thunderbolt ports of the 4, back when 4 was new, or now the 5 variety, are gaming laptops anyhow, and they've already got, you know, a big beefy graphics chip in them, and it's diminishing returns to plug a desktop GPU into them. It doesn't make a lot of sense financially to do that. If you could drop this kind of a connector into a Steam Deck handheld, or if you could drop it into an everyday laptop, you know, your $1,000 ZenBook or whatever, and now something that does not inherently have a lot of power can have a lot of power by buying an off-the-shelf eGPU, or one that you simply stick a graphics card into, that would be fundamentally much easier to build and much more accessible than building a full gaming PC. Would it be more attractive to people than do a pre-built gaming PC? I'm not sure. Maybe a pre-built gaming desktop would still be more attractive to those folks. But like, compared to building your own, this is far fewer components, less cost. If you aren't buying way too much GPU like we did with this 5090 here, and you lose, you know, a certain percent. I think you saw like 30% dip. Adam, was like how much GPU
each game was so
losing.
Different. Yeah,
Yeah,
like I think
they were different for me too.
Yeah, Cyberpunk was 30%, Call of Duty was 50%, and Black Myth Wukong was only like 15%, something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the more GPU bound, the better the benchmarks did, it seemed like.
Same in my tests.
Yeah, the thing, there's a level of complexity that comes with all of this. Not like, even with Thunderbolt, like the Oculink stuff is, like you said, it's a niche thing for people who know what they're getting into and shouldn't be entered into lightly, given the unhot swappable nature of the whole thing. But even when you're dealing with Thunderbolt has its own weird set of problems because of the shared bandwidth with whatever other stuff is in the Thunderbolt dock, whether that's Ethernet or USB or you know, whatever people choose to jam in there. And I don't, there's very few situations that I think you'd be better off with an external GPU than just getting a decent discrete internal GPU on a slightly bigger laptop. Right. Like I think the dream of the thin and light with the giant external GPU is like, I think your CPU or your pipeline between the CPU and the external GPU are always going to limit the performance of the external GPU that's big enough to be worth putting into a giant external cage, that you're better off getting a more modest, discrete internal GPU, probably.
I feel like the two things that Adam and I, not to speak for Adam too much, but I feel like the two things Adam and I discovered that certainly surprised me was, one, the 5090 here, and again, not somebody should buy a 5090 for this, but I figured that I was going to be fundamentally limited by the tiny CPU inside these handhelds, to the degree, and the interconnect. I thought I was going to be limited to such a degree that it'd be like, wow, this 5090 does not feel like a 5090 at all. It doesn't feel like a 5080. It feels like I've only put like a little glop of extra GPU on top of my handheld. But the reality for me was, these 5090 systems were just fundamentally, 5090 in a handheld was fundamentally trouncing a 3080 desktop that I was using before. As well it should, but many people who've been like looking at eGPUs for a while, as like casually been thinking, oh well, I'm not gonna do any GPUs anytime soon because just like there's just no point putting a big card in those. I think that turned out to be wrong from my perspective. That wow, you can get so much of the power even if your interconnect is fundamentally limited, even if the chip in your handheld is fundamentally limited in terms of what it can do in games, that you can just get so much more power than I expected. The second thing is a lot of people are still thinking about eGPUs as something that's going to be, here is a box that's going to cost you, the eGPU box itself, like what are you going to put the discrete card in? That the box is going to cost you more than a small form factor case for a desktop PC, like a lot more than that, like $400, $500 for an eGPU. And that has changed over the last year and a half, where the eGPU that both Adam and I tested, you have to bring your own power supply, but it's $100.
You're talking about the
Amazon right now.
enclosure, the thing that is the interface
The open
between
air, the open air piece.
not the
open air
GPU.
piece here. The thing underneath the GPU. Oh boy, I gotta
You got to put
my
your hand
body
behind
down.
that. Good luck with that, Sean.
Just put your body behind it.
Right?
Yeah.
No, okay. Minis form. This thing underneath it. There we go.
Here, I can put the hold on. I
Whatever.
got the article on.
Put the URL. Okay, this thing is $100 on Amazon. You bring your own GPU. I put a $2,000 GPU in there, of course. It's ridiculous. You bring your own power supply, but power supplies are also fairly inexpensive. You know, in this case, to run a $2,000 GPU, we needed a $200 power supply. But if it was a smaller one, you could go with a $100 power supply, an $80 power supply, a $50 power supply in some cases. I'm going to be testing a weak GPU in the near future with a $40 power supply I bought on Amazon. And we'll see how much more powerful than the handheld's internal graphics that is. And I'm willing to bet it's going to be a substantial amount. Probably enough to play 1080p games very comfortably, maybe 1440p games very comfortably on a desktop monitor. I don't know yet. That's just a guess.
Yeah, I would just tack on for also further context that I think it's a great argument that you say that like this is, you know, a comparable, or not comparable, a actually comparable financially alternative to small form factor cases, because I mean you do have your, you know, Cooler Master NR200s, which are under $100, but you also, for the longest time, and a lot of small form factor enthusiasts, they are buying cases closer to $200 or even $300. So, and that does nothing. Like it's literally just a shell for your components.
Yeah.
So it's just a choice of how you want to house your components and how they interact with each other.
Yeah, no, and for me, like I think this is always going to be a very privileged niche device, right? Like you're paying for like what you get out of it. Like so for me, I mean, it's kind of like with, hey, why would you buy a 5090? Do you really need a 5090 for gaming? Come on, nah. You know, but people like to buy it, you know. It's like, oh, well, what's the best? Okay, I got the best. And you can brute force your way past a lot of stuff and not have to worry about it. In my case, like that's what I think this is too. It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, sure, I can have multiple devices, and or I could build a desktop, and maybe that is cheaper, you know, overall to do that. But hey, what I'm trying to pay for is the convenience and like the crazy factor as well of like, hey, you know what? I've got a thin and light laptop, and I plug it in, and then all of a sudden it's got a 5090 and it works. Yeah, I think for me though, other than that, I think the problem I'm having, and I have more videos coming with this too. Spoiler. But the problem I'm having is that I actually don't think we should try to force everything into one connection, because Thunderbolt ain't it. Like as much as I want it to be, and like Thunderbolt 5 is better, like the problems I've had with Thunderbolt over eGPU stuff, like I've definitely been down that road for many years, and recently I'm trying something new as well, and just like, oh my God. So like and like that's where it falls down for me, is like I actually think having the connection just try to do everything over one, like, ooh, the power and the USB and the graphics and all that stuff, like it's like, oh, you know what? I think that's too much. I like, yeah. So So I'm kind of on the other fence, which I know a lot of people hate because they hate proprietary stuff, but Oculink is sort of proprietary, right? Like you still have to have an eGPU enclosure that works with it. You have to have a handheld or a laptop that has that plug. So it's not a proprietary, but it is limited versus Thunderbolt or USB, which is ubiquitous. Um, but one of the most stable experiences that I had for a connection was that Asus XG Mobile connection. You couldn't hot swap it in terms of like just literally plug and go. You still had to go through like a little bit of a process to kind of like disconnect it and reconnect it. So it was a little bit better than Oculink because you don't have to completely shut down the device. um, yeah. So, but it was stable. And same thing with the amplifier, right? It was like that was one of the better, more stable experiences.
I had some USB dropouts and things like
Oh,
that,
okay.
but
I
it
never
wasn't
used it, so-
terrible. What about
Yeah.
you? For when you're having issues with Thunderbolt, what are you typically seeing the biggest instabilities are?
I mean, yeah. So yesterday, okay, I'll spill the beans. So right now, I'm using Elena's pissed. She's gone now.
I can't take
we
any more
upset
of your shit, Adam. Oh, sorry, beep.
Beep. I'm using a Lunar Lake laptop and connecting it to a 5090 in an eGPU. It's Thunderbolt 3 based. And this thing has just been a nightmare. Like it won't recognize it, or it'll like just randomly disconnect, or I'm like having hard crashes. And just like it is like, yeah. And I mean, honestly, that I've had that for years with it's not the eGPU. I don't think it's the 5090 because that 5090 has been working in other places. I think it's just Thunderbolt. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think it's just like we're trying to make it do too many things at once. One of the I'll say one of the solutions. One of the solutions, real quick, and I wish the minis forum did this, is to have both, because I've also been trying out the there's a bunch of different kinds of these. This is the what is this? The
1X player
1X
GPU.
GPU, yeah.
Yeah.
I have the two versions, the 7600M XT and this is the 7800M. So like what I like about this is that this actually has both. So you can plug in Oculink and Thunderbolt at the same time. So you know, you're essentially saying, hey, the graphics go over one and all the connections on it go over the other one. Or if you're in a pinch, you can just put everything over one. But then, you know, you get some of the same problems. So like, yeah, that's why I'm like, I think for external solutions, it's probably either gonna like people need to circle around a proprietary thing like the XG Mobile solution and just say, hey, you know what? If you're looking in this kind of device, this kind of situation, let's just all circle our wagons around this thing. Or we offer both on a solution and you can use one or both at the same time. Rather, like, I really don't think Thunderbolt is going to get to a spot where it's like, oh, it just becomes the magical solution that rules everything.
I 100% disagree that we should give up on Thunderbolt or
No,
better
I'm not
yet,
disagreeing.
USB.
Thunderbolt's good.
Let's have it not
USB,
be proprietary Intel. But what excited me,
yeah.
you said Lunar Lake, and what excited me was hearing Intel's marketing that every Lunar Lake laptop would have these Thunderbolt ports. Like the marketing guys was like, we're going to give them two. They're going to have two Thunderbolt ports on every one of these Lunar Lake machines. And I'm like, yes, all these thin and lights, potentially eGPU compatible down the road. Does Thunderbolt work for this?
Look, you can't ask those kinds of questions, Sean. That's like, Thunderbolt's meant for docks so that when you go into the office, you plug your laptop in and you don't have to plug in a monitor and a mouse and a keyboard and Ethernet. You just
and a
plug
GPU
that one cable in. No normal people are plugging GPUs in. Oh, cat.
Yeah. Guthrie hates eGPUs.
Cat.
Orange kitty.
He's purring. He says, "You're
Oh.
talking about electronics."
I was trying to make him full screen,
Is
but it's
he
not
saying
work.
Thunderbolt?
Yeah. Well, listen. I like. I would love Thunderbolt 5 to be the thing, and it definitely has the bandwidth. Right now, it's still an external. Like people are like, "Oh yeah, it'll be coming into handhelds," and it's like, no, not until it's integrated into the chips. And Intel is like, "Oh yeah, we're not quite sure it's an external thing for now." I can't imagine handheld manufacturers are going to want to put a discrete Thunderbolt 5 controller in their handhelds right now. So like that's why I think like Oculink is a nice in between because it's not proprietary, but it is just dealing with that and it's not having to deal with other stuff.
I have heard that it's possible to make Oculink hot swappable. I don't know the truth of this. I don't know what it would take. I've heard that maybe if such a thing were to exist, you wouldn't be able to do it just willy-nilly, but only with like certain system and a certain eGPU that are designed to do this thing with each other. But feel like there's some fertile ground for some handheld maker to look at and maybe dismiss right away. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the hot swap thing doesn't even bug me. Like for me, it's the stability. I've just had way too like I did have, I will say, I did have this laptop hooked up to a 5090 today earlier at my system, but I kept having problems that I was like, I don't want to be hosting this podcast, and all of a sudden, just where'd Adam go? Oh crap, his system crashed. So I disconnected it. Now I'm just running off of a Thunderbolt dock with no eGPU. But yeah, like that's the problem for me. Like especially like for gaming, whatever. You know, maybe I can deal with that kind of stuff. But if I'm going to rely on it for work, I need it to be stable. And like, yeah, I just haven't had the stability. That is also why I like the eGPU enclosure, the Cooler Master Case EG200 that they don't make anymore, because they had a separate connection for the Thunderbolt and for the USB ports on it. So you could plug it in. You know, you have two separate plugs. So that's what I think. Like, I think we're gonna have to sacrifice the one plug thing to just have two plugs in the future for an eGPU dock solution. You plug two things instead of one. What if one deals with specifically with the graphics, one deals with the ports and
look? I think you just put a female PCIe slot on the bottom of every laptop, and then you just slam that thing down like a SNES. So you just slam your laptop down on there, and then. Look, I've joked for a long time that NVIDIA's ultimate goal is for the computer be the thing that you put inside the video card. So you have like a little slot inside the video card for memory and an SSD and a CPU, and then the rest of it is just GPU all the way. It's like a giant big box. That's where we're going.
And I showed you the Willis. I don't know if you've seen it, Sean. The Minis Forum makes that mini PC that has the slot on it so that you dock both into an eGPU solution. Like, yeah, I could see that on a handheld, right? On the I mean, it's probably like it's a port you definitely have to cover up because it'd be long and very sensitive.
It's probably fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I touch it all the time. But yeah, like docking that in, kind of like the Switch, right? Imagine if you had your handheld, you put it in like a Switch, and it's a dock that you can't really mess up inserting it in a different way. It slots in, and you're literally just slotting it into a GPU.
Imagine if the port on the bottom of the Switch was USB-C shaped.
Weird, yeah.
Wow. It's next level. What if you just plugged in 4 USB-C ports? And you get 16 lanes into your dock, and then you're good to go. That's all I'm looking for.
Or two Oculink ports.
Yeah,
there we go. So that's my problem. I only have one, or no, I have two systems. Well, one that actually matters that has Oculink. You have another new system that has Oculink on it that I have yet to touch. Or do you have it in front of you? Or smell? Yeah, I got to get a smell report on this one.
Oh, Sean's opening the closet now.
Yeah, Sean's got something special here.
Is this thing going to turn on? Do I have to show my messy room in order to show this properly without it just vanishing?
Tell people what it is real quick.
I want to, but I really want it to power on so it can do the trick. I want to power it on so it can do the trick. So what I have in my hands, which I'm not showing you yet, but I will tell you about, is the Ayaneo 3. And so the Ayaneo 3 is the mini PC, the handheld gaming PC from the boutique company that loves to bring out so many handhelds we can't possibly keep track of them. But
3
this
of them
one,
so far, right?
Oh, just 3.
No.
Yeah. I want to say like
you're right. I mean, by the numbering,
12.
He's right.
Okay, so what's going to happen here is I'm going to hold. Oh, what's it doing? What are you doing?
It's loading your
IO
space.
Okay, I'm just going to assume that it's not going to care about that.
Now it's an IO space.
Watch it very closely.
Yes, we're watching.
What?
Okay, so I just had it yeet its own controllers onto the table.
Yeah. For audio listeners, they just fell out.
It just fell out. They spring-loaded, popped out of this thing. So this thing has control sticks and pads that can be shoved in any way, and you can swap them out with other things too. I've got somewhere around here. I got a pile.
Oh, that looks so weird to have the D-pad.
I
on the
don't
right
like
side.
this. I don't like the
Actually, sorry,
D-pad's
this
on the
orientation
wrong
doesn't
side.
work. You can't swap the left and right. Okay, I'm going to turn off. You're going to see
okay.
my messy room. I'm so sorry, everybody.
We're not judging. Everybody's room
yeah,
is
it's
messy.
fine.
Life of a hardware
Nobody's
reviewer.
This is
Yeah,
a
nobody's watching
reviewer's.
Yeah.
This is
a
the
reviewer's
unglamorous
space
side
here.
of the
Yes, love it.
of the game.
Okay, we'll just show you a little bit of that. And so, and there's all these other ones that you can stick in there. So you got your little fight pad, or you can use touch pads.
You got the
can have your
Genesis 6
rocker
buttons.
style. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Genesis style 6 button. Okay, and so we'll just pop those things out and pop in something else instead. And so we got our.
You have to replace it for it to work, right? It's not like Joy-Cons where you
I
can
love
just
that
hold
you
them
do it that way.
independent of the device.
Yeah, so these things, they're just these little modules, and you stick them in, and so now I've got, a touchpad on the left instead of a joystick, and I've got a fight pad on the right.
The
There you go.
ergonomics of using the fight pad though, are a nightmare. Like you're going to
It's
be holding it
fine.
like this and presumably resting it someplace.
Tate mode. Tate mode.
Yeah, I guess you're doing
Yeah.
I
mean, it's not bad. It's no Sega Saturn pad, I'll tell you that.
Look, what is?
And it could use a little bit of work. So what people are telling me, I wrote a story about this, and I'm like, oh, this looks amazing. You could finally swap your sticks so they're symmetrical instead of Xbox style on a Windows machine. So you got both your sticks at the top like a Steam Deck, or you got your trackpads in there. But what a bunch of the commenters responded to me, and they were absolutely right to say this, is, well, the Steam Deck has both of those things. It's got the sticks and it's got the touchpads. You don't have to pick between them. And it's also got all these other buttons. And Valve did all of this, ergonomic research to make sure they're in great places for your thumbs. And I do find the Steam Deck more comfortable than this in use, even neglecting some of the issues that Ayaneo's got with this very pre-production unit. So this is not reviewable. They say things around the modules will get better. But yeah.
So Elena, real quick, I know we've talked about this before.
What?
Do you prefer, for sticks, do you prefer symmetrical or asymmetrical? I always forget which one.
For me, I very much need the Xbox style layout. I
Xbox,
can't
okay.
do the DualShock, or I guess now DualSense layout. For whatever reason, my hands just really hate having the thumb sticks down here. It's much more comfortable for me to just have like my thumb a little bit still closer to my full hand.
Which is how most handhelds are that way. Windows hand. I am surprised because I definitely see a lot of people be like, "Oh man, I wish they would make one that had the symmetrical style." And I always thought I was an Xbox person until I got this new controller that I've been mainlining for a year that I love, and like, and I was
you
like,
can turn
"Oh,
around?
Well, yeah, they work upside down. So now I've made them symmetrical. This is the opposite of how they ship normally. And you can take the little the face buttons off with like a little puller and switch them around to different orientations. So I can make them Nintendo style or Xbox style, and then make them not upside down because currently they're upside down. If I want to do that.
Does it? Sorry, Adam. I apologize for interrupting, but go ahead.
No, somebody in the chat's asking about how the modules eject. Like, is this a button that you're hitting?
Yeah, I'm right. I'm holding down a button. There's also a software thing. So you don't have to eject them both at once. If I go into, let me do this my direction first so I can see, and then I'll flip it around.
And how much are they popping up? Like is it like a spring loaded?
Yeah. So these things are actually spring loaded. So I'll press this one, then I'll move it. Okay. So press it one at a time. And so, yeah, you see there's a little bit of spring loading in there.
Go gadget.
There's these little nubs inside that are the spring things, and there's a little motor that pulls aside the. You can barely see it in there. But these,
the holder.
The holders at the side, which go into these little notches. So
I can't wait to crawl along the floor of the airplane as I'm trying to find that when it springs out and it's like three rows back, and I'm like, hey, does anybody see a weird thing? It's definitely not a bomb. Just it's a controller. Please pass it forward 2 rows. It's gonna go great.
I'm just a handheld. So what do you think? Do you like it? Do you like how often are you swapping it out?
I mean, frankly, I would just find one set up that I like. Probably the sticks at the top. Maybe I would do a touchpad on the right side. What I think I would do: touchpad and buttons on the right, stick on the left. So I've got my touchpad for nice mouse style aiming, and then I would have the stick on the left for movement, kind of like the this Steam controller let you do a while back. I would probably the thing I hate about the Xbox style layout really is that I've got a stick under the meaty part of my palm while I'm trying to reach face buttons. It's like this stick is getting in the way of me hitting those face buttons some of the time. So that's the one thing I'd want to change there. So I'd find this one layout I like and probably stick to it unless I was switching to a fighting game where I'd pull out the 6-button fight pad thing. I don't need this whole kit.
When you were rotating the buttons, does it remap the buttons so that it's correct? The buttons are correct orientation, or do you have to manually do that for each different layout?
It will do the flip automatically.
Okay.
So if I take the module and flip it upside down, it knows the orientation of the buttons is the opposite. In fact, there are, I don't know if you can see it very easily, but there are, I should probably talk into the microphone. There are 4 pogo pins on the bottom of each of the, 6 pogo pins on the bottom of each module.
Got it.
That little bit of copper, you cannot. It's just totally
it keeps
blanking
popping
it
in and
for
out. But
love it. 6 pins on the bottom, but there are 12 contacts on the bottom of each receptacle, so it knows which orientation it's in just by which sets of contacts are plugged in, and so it doesn't need any fancy gyroscope or accelerometer gyroscopes, anything like that for that. It just does that based on contacts, and then it'll flip them. But if you want to then like reorient the physical legends on the buttons, that means pulling off the buttons and putting them into their new spots. And then of course you can map them however you like in software.
It's interesting. How do the sticks feel? What kind of do they use? Fancy sticks? Are they like Hall effect sticks?
They're Hall effect.
That's the rage right now. I believe the kids love Hall effect.
The kids are all about it. Yeah. They need those Hall effect everywhere. Yeah, on their TikToks, on their the sneakers that have the wheel. What are those called?
The Heelys, I believe, is what they're
Heelys,
called.
Yes,
Yeah,
they need Hall effect Heelys. Yeah, kids are just all over
just
it.
All about that. Look, if they sold Heelys for adults, I would have Heelys. If there were Heelys in my weight class, I would be there all day long. I'd be Heelying up and down the street.
100%, especially if it had RGB. Yeah, we're on it.
Yeah.
Oh, we need here we go.
No,
we need to quit our day jobs.
No, I'm not making hardware. It's too much work. It's way too hard. This is an Indiegogo thing right now, right? They fund their new hardware a lot on Indiegogo at Ayaneo.
Yeah. It's the thing. They're constantly bringing out new handhelds of all kinds there so that they can leap onto this new idea and quickly do small batches. And I don't know how this company survives continuing to push out tiny batches of new flavor of the week handhelds. It doesn't make any sense to me. I would love to talk to their CEO. I think his name's Arthur Zhang, about how this is possible and where the money is coming from. So Arthur, anytime you want to chat, down.
Well, speaking of chatting, we are running short on time, but I did want to ask you about one more handheld thing. The other hotness we've been talking about, Sean, is Strix Halo.
Oh.
Yeah. So
that's not a handheld.
I know, but it's kind of adjacent to the eGPU thing, to the handheld stuff, because I actually think in some ways some people in the chat just kept spamming Strix Halo in the chat, because I think the other thing is like, okay, well, what if you could have a thin and light that has just a huge integrated GPU in it?
That sounds great to me, Adam. I would love that.
Yeah, kind of to Will's thing, where it's like, you know what? Just buy something that has the beefy hardware inside of it. I haven't had a chance to try Strix Halo. Have you?
I have not spent quality time with Strix Halo. My colleague Antonio has. I did lift a laptop, like a ZBook from HP or something at CES. I was like, oh, I've got 128 gigs of memory and the most powerful integrated graphics in my hand. That's novel. That's cool. But like it's the TDP range on this is 45 to 120 watts. And so, we're still putting 50 watt hour batteries in handhelds. And we're talking about fundamentally, if you want this to run at its proper range, we're talking about an hour or less of battery life, probably a lot less. Like, but the idea behind it of like, let's just put the beefiest thing in possible. What if this is a question I'd love to ask you. Like, if you knew along the lines of the eGPU thing, if you knew that you had so very much more power that you could only access when you're plugged into the wall with a device, would you pay extra to get that power? Or do you
Yes.
need that power to be with you on the go and actually accessible all the time?
And I was
No.
instantly
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Because
yes. Yeah.
like when I'm playing all my handhelds, I'm playing on the couch right next to a wall jack, and I'm plugged in all the time. I personally don't care about battery life, except for when I travel on the plane, right? And that happens, maybe once every couple months. So like, yeah, and even then, at least the international flights a lot of times have a power jack as well. So like me, like I'm not somebody who cares too much about battery life, me personally.
You
So
can get a big 20,000 milliamp hour battery pack, just chuck it in
Which
your
I
bag
do.
with you. It's like a tiny bomb that you bring on the airplane. It's great. People love that.
So yeah, I don't know. It's also the difference between like AMD and Intel laptops. Like Gordon would always do that kind of testing. Is like AMD is usually consistent across both plugged and unplugged, where Intel kind of like throttles depending if you're plugged or unplugged, or I can't remember. Maybe it's the other way around. But yeah,
I mean, TDP is also how much cooling these things need. So I don't know if it's even possible to put one in a handheld right now. But if you could,
I mean that's the thing for me, because like the GPD Win Max 2, like 10 inches is too small. I need a bigger screen, just me personally.
whoa,
That's one of the
10 is too
downsides for
small.
me. Yeah, 10 is too small for me. But like I would actually be okay if they downsized the battery on this and upgraded the cooling for a higher TDP range. I would personally make that sacrifice, like for this kind of form factor.
Well,
So
And I mean, the other thing about the Strix Halo stuff is because it's not cooling two dies, because there's not a GPU die and a CPU die in there, there's less space in the machine taken up by cooling. So theoretically, even though it's a relatively small device, you can jam more battery in there than you would be able to put in to a comparable. Like, this is why we don't have discrete NVIDIA graphics in handhelds right now, right? Is because the amount of space taken up by the cooling would eat into the battery life to the point that there's just no reason to do it, except for people like Adam who always are plugged in.
Yeah.
And I think that realistically, look, there's going to be some Strix Halo parts that don't bin right? So they're going to have find something to do with them. And I think that they have the Z1 now, they have the Z2. This could be the Z2 Plus, the Z2 Ultra, the Z2, Z3, who knows? They're going to have to find something to do with the Strix parts that don't bin. So they'll just
we call them like handheld gaming PCs, but not portable. Yeah, not portable. Gaming PCs. They're tethered only, and they're just like
I'll take it.
phenomenally more powerful. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm having some trouble following this conversation just because earlier you were talking so much about how much you love handhelds, Adam. And I know one of the ones you use has a smaller screen than 10 inches. But now you just said 10 inches was too small. Are you talking about that for that form factor part in particular?
I mean, for doing work on this, right now I have like a work laptop that's 17 inches and a handheld that's 7 or 8 inches, right?
You don't want to edit
this
video
is trying
on
to
that
do
screen?
both. Yeah. So that's the problem with it. It's not even like the DPI range. I saw somebody say, "Oh, I thought he had good eyes." It's more like I just need more real estate. Like my DPI is actually pretty small on this.
We haven't talked about this, Adam, but like this GPD, this Win Max. Sorry, I'm moving away from my microphone again. Win Max 2, like this thing it's actually a competent work laptop, except for that like screen real estate and the weird trackpad placement. Like the trackpad placement on this is like god awful, tiny and right in the center. But like I've actually done a lot of work on it, and I don't reach for it first because of the size of the screen. I would like it to be larger. I reach for like the MacBook first, but that and the trackpad are kind of the only reasons I reach for the MacBook first. And so even though this isn't the most amazing handheld in the world, it's a pretty good mini PC.
Yeah. I mean, and it's trying to do both. That's the thing. This one specifically is trying to do both in an easy way. I also like Davina's comment in the chat here. They want an 8K screen at 8 inches. So it's 1K
per inch.
It's too many pixels. It's too many pixels.
Such things.
Yeah, too many
There
pixels.
are no limits to the human eyes, Will.
Oh, yeah.
Also, too many minutes. I want to wrap this up. I do want to get to some questions real quick. I love talking with Sean. I wish we could talk more about handhelds. We should do videos in the future. Hey,
Sure.
you're based in the Bay Area. Maybe we should make it work. Yeah, let's get over to Q&A. If you have a real burning question, sure, get them in. But we'll probably get to them a little
We
bit
keep
later.
saying that. You're like,
I
we're going to have
Yeah.
a question and answer episode, and we've got so many built up. We've got so many built up.
Hey, what do you think about the what do you think about the Intel 13900K problems, Adam? That's we're starting with the last backlogged
It's not
question.
going back. It's not going back.
We've
that
heard
far.
we've heard rumors that people are seeing crashes on Raptor Lake and Raptor Lake Refresh. It's really weird. I don't know what's going on. You think there's any smoke there?
Okay, all right, I get it. So we got a question from QH Freddy asks, "Am I the only one struggling to take the 7950 X3D and the 9950 X3D with their Xbox Game Bar scheduling seriously? I just have such a hard time putting any real faith in such an implementation." And I followed up in that question was like, "Oh, are you not putting faith in it being able to do its job correctly, or like what?" And yeah, essentially just saying like they don't trust Game Bar or Windows or however the scheduling is happening to be able to force the workload on whichever CCD they want. They want just Vcache on both CCDs. AMD says that no, you probably don't want that either. But yeah, what's Will, you've only been using a single CCD card, so you haven't had to deal with that.
Yeah, but like to me, asking the Microsoft Game Bar / Game Mode, whatever thing that Microsoft does, in a tool that's predominantly been a marketing pipeline for Microsoft to sell me Game Pass subscriptions, feels, and then suddenly saying, "Hey, yeah, this is how you make your computer run right," feels a little bit weird, right? That's to me I get that vibe. I also understand that it works because I've seen the benchmarks and we've run them in the lab and we know that it actually does the thing that they say it's doing. But it feels weird. It feels like that should just be a thing. You don't have to have the Xbox stuff installed on your PC if you do. I don't think you can uninstall Game Bar anymore for what it's worth. Also, I think it's just a thing that you have to have installed in your computer now.
Also, but really what Game Bar is doing is saying, is this a game? Yes or no. If it is, put it on the Vcache part or not, right? Yeah. So I actually think that makes sense for the Game Bar implementation, at least from that aspect, because it's like, oh, if you're doing any normal work, whatever, but I recognize it's a game and the Xbox Game Bar should be able to do that. So then it should put it on the Vcache part. Except for there are cases where you might want it to run on the higher. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter on the 9950 X3D now that the clocks are similar, but yeah, there was a way to force it to one or the other. People in that thread also was just like, hey, you know what? Just use Project Lasso, which you can actually just manually go in. Have you ever anybody used Project Lasso before? I actually haven't messed around with it. So, but I keep hearing people talk about it. But you're right. I do think QH Freddy does bring up a good point. Like, we're relying on Microsoft. We're relying on a tool that nobody else relies on. Like, Intel isn't going out there and saying like, oh, you need to make sure that you're, it's going to hit the P cores or the E cores, and Game Bar is going to be the one to do that. Just different use case, though, I would say. So,
I mean, it's a knock-on effect of the CPUs becoming dramatically more complicated as we moved from monolithic dies to sorry, we've been talking for 2 hours and change. I can't remember the word. What's the opposite of monolithic dies?
Disaggregated
dies. Thank you.
Yes,
yeah, disaggregated architectures.
Sean, do you put faith in Xbox Game Bar?
Funny you should mention it. The last two handhelds I've been booted up with Windows on them. They've told me that I need to download something for Microsoft Game Board from the Microsoft Store as soon as I start them up, and I go to the Microsoft Store and that thing is not there.
Oh, really?
But in general, I think of Microsoft's Game Bar as the thing that they have been using as a band-aid to while they try to figure out what the heck to do with Windows on gaming handhelds, and so I dislike it for that reason. Fundamentally, I've turned it off on almost every system I've I've needed to use it on if that's an option, been an option. But there, I'm sure that team is doing important work while Microsoft figures its shit out.
Did you sorry. Did you like the implementation in the new MSI Claw of having the quick access menu be in the game bar?
I was fixated on a lot of other shortcomings in the
yeah.
MSI Claw. And they didn't send me the new one because I was fixated on those other shortcomings.
Okay.
So
Got it.
I haven't gotten to try the new one yet beyond a quick stab at CES.
Okay. Somebody in the chat asked, oh crap, and I missed it. Can you talk about 5090 release rumors? That's pretty funny.
I think, yeah,
going back to
we'll save that one for the callback.
Yeah, we'll save that
show.
one for next
We're
one.
gonna,
Yeah,
we're gonna
we
book
can't talk about that one yet.
Yeah, it's too early.
Tim Lau asks, has there been any word on Cam 2 on desktop? At CES, I did ask the vendors about that, and they all pretty much told me nothing to report. Yeah, I was hoping to see something at CES. How interested are you in Cam 2 modules on the desktop, Sean?
I want flatter, more modular everything. So please, let's do it. I mean, I'm fine
you
with
heard anything after Computex last year?
A couple sites. It's not a question I've been asking personally, but I think that many things in the motherboard could be flatter. So that'd be nice.
2025, maybe the year of Cam 2 at Computex.
I hope so. All right, a couple more, and then we will get out of here. Oh no, user Linux 8. Should I ask this question? They're obviously
You already started.
Linux, yeah.
Already
They
started.
spell user with a Z though. I don't know about that.
Yeah, okay.
And it's the year of Linux, so we gotta
That's true. It is the year of
be
Linux.
thematically appropriate here.
With GPU prices skyrocketing and supply often scarce, is GeForce Now's ultimate tier a viable long-term alternative for PC gamers tired of the endless upgrade cycle? At $20 a month, okay, yeah, yeah. Brad's not here, so he can't talk about his favorite GeForce Now. Sean, have you had much time with GeForce Now?
I've done actually a lot, but not recently. I haven't tested recently to see if they've done all kinds of, fun behind the scenes changes. But when they were getting to the 40 series tier, we were really genuine. Tom Warren and I were really genuinely impressed with where we'd gotten to in terms of like cook this up on a desktop that's got an aging graphics card, and all of a sudden it's like there's the power of the new graphics card there. They had fixed a number of the things we were looking at around latency. They'd fixed a number of the things we were looking at around the big thing I talk about that people just don't understand before they get into cloud gaming is that when you play games where what you are seeing on screen is going to be negatively impacted by compression artifacting in the stream, like lots of fog, or you're in a dark environment. Hey,
real
I'm
dark,
trudging
yeah.
through the dark caves in Tomb Raider
where
or
it
something
kills
like
me,
that. It's very difficult to see what you're doing or where you're going because of all the compression artifacting in the image. And so they improved that a little bit too. It was not perfect, but it was not, quite what I wanted for my daily driver. But I have gotten to the point where I used to be a solid mid-tier PC gamer where I'd always buy the bang for the buck video cards, and I'd always be in a position where I'm like, I can play games at native rasterization at, maybe not ultra settings, but medium, high settings at my monitor's native resolution, and it would look great. And as cards have become more expensive and I've wanted to continue to be in that I'm not paying ridiculous gobs of money position, I've started to embrace things like DLSS, where before I was very anti-DLS. I'm like, DLSS is great when you can't afford more than that.
You're right.
It is so great when you can't afford more than that. FSR, same deal, but slightly less so. GeForce Now, like the thing I'd be concerned about more than the technology itself at this point is it actually giving you a good experience based on the server's distance to you? Because you can only go as, you can't beat the speed of light, you can't beat the speed of the internet connection over distance. If the servers are too far away for you to get a reliable ping, a reliable latency between the time you press a button and what you see happening, then you're going to have issues. I am close to their San Jose servers. I am always going to have good results in GeForce Now. You may not.
Same.
The other thing that you really need to do is you should try it before you spend too much on it, and you should try it with a day pass of Ultimate, because all the other tiers they have, whatever they were calling the priority tier, they may have changed the name of that, or their free trial, only their top service tier gives you the right peek into what cloud gaming can actually do for you. The other tiers are compromised in so many ways, last I checked, that it's not even worth trying, because it will not be the kind of result that you'll have.
Yeah, the performance tier is a 1440p QHD, and I think it's an 8 core vCPU, which means you're going to have some weird throttling and stuff. That's the $10 a month plan. The $99 for 6 months Ultimate, or $20 a month plan, is they advertise as 4080 tier, which the last time I tried, I was really pleasantly surprised. But again, I think it really depends on your distance to a data center and the types of games you play.
I want to say one thing beyond that too. Go ahead, please, and I'll do it after.
I was just going to say, if you're playing top-down story-driven stuff and non-Twitch games, you're going to have a wildly different experience than if you want to play Counter-Strike or Valorant or something like that. That's a really fast game as well. So. Yeah,
some of the latency improvements they've done help with that, and because the servers have good peering to those games, depending on the games, theoretically you won't run into like, oh, well, GeForce Now is connecting very quickly to those games, and so your ping might be actually good there. But the other thing I want to say about the Ultimate tier, this was very important, at least last time I checked it out. This was a couple of years, so forgive me if this has changed. Not just about the amount of power GPU you've got in the cloud and the frame rate you get out of that and the graphics settings you get out of it. It's also about what kind of stream NVIDIA will let you send to your computer. For a while there, and it may still be the case, if you want to send the best quality stream to your computer, forget about what resolution the game is running at internally, but if I want to get a 4K stream going to my computer, that is going to have less of that ugly, I'm not sure if I'm seeing where I'm going, as if you have a higher res stream. So you really want to go into your settings, if you're doing that, change the custom settings so that you are sending a 4K stream to your computer, so you get the maximum visual quality, less artifacts.
Yeah.
Well, and they'll do HDR too, which will help with the dithering in the dark and bright environments, which is nice.
Honestly, the biggest thing for me though is selection, because like the times that I've booted it up that I've wanted to use it, sometimes I'm like, oh, well, crap, the game that I want to play is not available. Well, so like that's why for me, like the question is like, should somebody just buy the physical hardware or rely on this? Like for me, like that's kind of out of the box, because like I can't just play anything from my Steam library. It still has to be available on GeForce Now, and like I would take a cheaper hardware solution because of the compatibility, even though it is like a good service. And hey, if you are only going to play a couple games and those games are on there, and then cool, go for it. But yeah, I'm somebody who likes to dabble. I play a lot of different games, so.
Well, and like the GeForce Now support is a toggle in the Steam backend, right? Like you choose whether your game is going to be available for that. And there's weird gaps. Like I want to say for years and years, PUBG wasn't available, which is like consistently a top game on Steam. It feels weird to me that those kinds of big live service games aren't available on these services. And part of that is because the rendering is happening, the game is being rendered in a data center someplace that's presumably very close, or could be presumably very close to where the game server is. It shifts the lag balance in a weird way, so that you're on a low tick rate game like PUBG, it can cause some balancing problems. I think is why they didn't do it, or maybe they just wanted NVIDIA to write them a big fat GeForce Now check. Who can say?
All right, wait, one more question, we'll get out of here. Matt, friend of the show, Matt from Gordon Mong Power Supply Company, regional manager, asks, do you skip the credits after beating a game, or are you a good person and watch them? Will?
I always watch the credits, man.
Wow. Oh, look at this.
Always watch the credits.
Always watch the credits. Elena, are you a good person?
I'll be honest. I don't know
Oh,
if I
no.
can. I have the moral right to say I'm a good person, but I will run the credits because I want to see if there's going to be something at the end.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, you still running the credits though. All right. Sean, are you a good person?
Okay. I would say 3/4 of the
boy.
games I play, I am watching the credits with my phone out, looking at other things during them. So I may see some of those names go by and be like, "Oh, that's a really cool name," or "That's a really cool role," or "Hey, look at all those
Ooh,
people on the
cool
PR
name.
team I know," or "Oh, that guy's the game director. That's that person is the one who did that." But I would say that 75% of the credits I am missing because I'm looking up on my phone whether there's going to be something after the credits or figuring out some mysteries of the game's unfinished ending or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Data says Sean is maybe a 3/4 of a good person. So or
Look,
one
really
quarter, I
evil.
guess. Yeah.
I love it when you get a credit system that has like a big game in it. Like, Mario, you used to be able to collect the coins, or Saints
Oh,
Row at the
yeah.
end, the narrator would come on and be like, "Hey man, thanks for watching the credits. We really appreciate you riding all the way down with us. We worked really hard on this game. Now go play New Game Plus or something," right? Like, enjoy. Love the credits. Flower had a whole playable mini game in the credits. People do.
Astrobot is
Yeah.
phenomenal. Credits playable, and then so I beat The Last of Us Part 2. I'm very late to that game, by the way. I skipped it entirely during the pandemic, but it has hauntingly beautiful music sung by the game's voice actors,
Oh,
and I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and listen to all of this. And apparently, you get different songs based on what difficulty you beat the game at. So I might have to go do it again.
Oh.
Oh, you're gonna put yourself through that again?
let me introduce you to YouTube, Sean.
Nah, nobody goes over there. Nobody goes.
Uh,
Okay.
do
Interesting.
you
Fun
watch
times.
Hold on. Do you watch the credits, Adam? You didn't tell us. Are you
Yeah,
good or bad?
check back next week for your fix of PC Talk on the full nerd.
Oh.
Listen to us on the go. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Pocket, Deezer, anywhere that you get, you can point your RSS feed to.
We're Deezering at a high level up in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Please, if you're on one of those services, please leave us a review. Give us a thumbs up, stars, whatever you want. Every time you do, another person from The Verge will show up on the podcast and get in trouble. Hopefully. Just
Hopefully
kidding.
not.
Sean's not getting in trouble.
Get me away from work for so
Yeah.
long.
I know. I'm sorry.
You're not going to believe all the
no,
news
I
that
love
broke
it.
while you were
It's very
doing
good.
this,
Yeah,
Sean.
yeah.
That's the
Oh
thing.
God. Oh God. What
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
Don't
No,
think about it just
it's
yet.
worth it. It's worth it. So I want to thank everybody, including Elaine Yee, for hanging out with us.
Bye, everybody. It's Candy Week.
Candy Week. Will Smith for controlling the verticals and horizontals and other things.
The season of candy continues. It's the Halloween to Easter death spiral right now. We're at the midway point, though.
Everyone needs to rate Will's ability to control verticals and horizontals right now in the chat. I want you to give him
Thumbs
a
up.
rating. Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Okay.
Or star
good.
rating or letter grades, whatever. I also want to thank Sean Hollister for hanging out with us and spending time away from work. I appreciate it.
It's been good to get all of my handheld thoughts out there at once.
Yes. We'll talk more handhelds. Thank you. Love it. And then Will is going to take us out of here. So depending on how well you grade him is how well he's going to take us out of here.
Yeah, I don't remember how we take the show out because I never get to hear this. Do we just go to a black screen and say thanks for watching? Do I say something nice about everybody and tell everybody to have a lovely week? I look at the camera.
That's funny. You put up the end soon. No, you just go back to the intro music video.
Oh, okay. Well, that seems easy.
Play that again. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We will see you all next week on The Full Nerd. Bye, everybody.